Chapter 586. Rumble. Gods were everywhere, not to mention this was the eternal world. Now, hundreds of barges were vying for the current. Thousands of races were standing in great numbers, and Hongjun Tiandao was hanging high in the sky. As soon as Yi Tianxing's voice fell, everyone felt a supreme and merciless aura enveloping the entire place. When they looked up, they saw that in the void, invisible will of heaven and earth instantly gathered. In a flash, it evolved into a vertical eye, staring at the entire bound of Yellow City, staring at Yi Tianxing, staring at everyone. It was like a prison, like a mountain, like a sea, and it was indescribable. Under that kind of pressure, everyone felt their own insignificance. Even Fang Qingshan, who had seen the heavenly eye before, tried his best to retract his aura, for fear that the heavenly eye would discover any clues. After all, the heavenly eye of the eternal world was only evolved from a king-grade immortal weapon in the immortal world. The heavenly eye here was the convergence of the entire great world's will, an existence similar to the desolation of Hongjun Tiandao. Just think about those giants and almighties who were still sealed to know how powerful it was. Approved. Fang Qingshan even felt that the heavenly eye stopped on him for a moment. Fortunately, the timeless arc was powerful, coupled with the universal chessboard, a treasure of providence, did not let the heavenly eye find any clues. Fang Qingshan could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Then he heard the heavenly eye spit out a word coldly. As soon as the voice fell, there was a ripple in the void, and endless laws gathered. In an instant, an ancient and mysterious gate stood between heaven and earth. Dragon Gate. The dragon was the head of the four spirits of heaven and earth, the sacred beast among the sacred beasts. It was supreme and noble and blessed by nature. However, the only downside was that it was the disadvantage of all high-level sacred beasts and divine beasts, and that was its reproductive power. The world was so big that even if you reached the level of primordial chaos saint, you could not unify the world with just a thought. After all, it was impossible for you to do everything yourself. In order to develop and dominate, reproduction was a big problem for the dragon clan. Dragons were lascivious by nature, but there was no shortage of reproduction. However, if they were to mate with other races, or even their own race, they would not be able to guarantee the purity of their bloodline. Therefore, the ancestral Gragon thought of a way to refine a dragon gate using the karmic luck and the mystical treasures. As long as it was a scale, as long as it crossed the dragon gate, it could transform into a dragon. The more times one crossed it, the greater the benefits one would obtain, and the purer their bloodline would be. Of course, this dragon gate was not the dragon gate, but its effects were similar. It was specially prepared by Hongjun Tiandao for the dragon spirit of fortune. As long as he could overcome it, he could evolve further and become a five-clawed golden dragon or even an ancestral dragon. The Xinhuang city's advancement had already happened once before, so no one was surprised. He could only pray silently. After all, if the advancement failed, the entire bound of Yellow City and even Yi Tianxing would be severely injured, let alone the establishment of the nation. Roar! A dragon roar shook the sky, and the Xianhuang city's fate dragon snake flew out of the heavenly lake of fate. Boundless fate transformed into a surging river that connected the heavenly lake and the dragon's gate. The fate dragon snake went against the flow and succeeded in one leap. The reason why it was so easy this time was naturally because of Fang Qingshan's appearance. He had caused a mutated tribe's army to be almost completely wiped out, and the fate he obtained was almost at the peak of Royal City. That was why it was so easy. As the fate dragon snake successfully transformed, the entire bound of Yellow City also underwent earth-shattering changes. First, it was the heavenly lake of fate, followed by the color of the fate, then its aura, range, sturdiness, and so on. Fortune City. Seeing this scene, Fang Qingshan's heart trembled. As the bound of Yellow City's advancement, Fang Qingshan actually felt the aura of the timeless arc from it. In all seriousness, there was nothing strange about this. The timeless arc used the eternal lotus seed as its core. After advancing, it would receive the eternal Holy Lotus blessing. The Bound of Yellow City used the village creation order after the fusion of the infinite worlds as its core. After advancing, it would also receive the favor of Hongjun Tiandao. The Timeless Ark had all kinds of units and buildings with unique treasures. The city also had all kinds of special buildings, such as the Scripture Library and the Sky-Piercing Pavilion, the Moonwell, the Barracks, the Death Coliseum, and so on. Moreover, Fong Qingshan's Permitha was forged from the immortal bronze and the third-grade golden lotus. It could be tempered by the power of will and upgraded. The Bound of Yellow City was directly built from the Orbs of Will. The only difference was that the Timeless Ark started from Ling Yun's level, where it dominated the Grotto Heaven. On the other hand, the Bound of Yellow City was built from a village, step by step. When it reached the Royal City, it only reached the preliminary stage of Ling Yun's level. Another difference was that the city focused on defense. In terms of offense, although there were arrow towers, magical towers, and other weapon units, they were much weaker than Fong Qingshan's Timeless Arkansas. Fong Qingshan's Permitha could completely defeat the Bound of Yellow City with just a death scythe. It seems like the establishment of a nation is also imperative. In the past, Fong Qingshan had wanted to establish a nation here, just like Yi Tianqing. He only wanted to make a move in advance. And while those great beings were imprisoned and sealed, he planned well so that he could occupy a place in the future and reap more luck. But now that he had seen the miraculous effects of the village creation order, which could even rival Ling Yun's Timeless Ark when advancing to the Royal City, Fong Qingshan could not help but be tempted. Thinking back to when he had planned the Timeless Ark, he had burned most of his luck and lifespan, but he had almost failed. If he had known in advance that the village creation order had such miraculous effects, he would not have needed to go through so much trouble. However, although the entry threshold of the village creation order was slightly lower, in order to advance, one had to establish a nation, take the path of a luck dynasty, and dominate the world. In comparison, the Timeless Ark was easier. As long as one had enough resources, one could advance all the way. This was just like Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin. If Fong Qingshan wanted to break through, he had to improve his cultivation, mental state, magical power, and resources. On the other hand, Mosquito Dowrin only needed resources. Just as Fong Qingshan was thinking about establishing a nation, there was another change in the Bound of Yellow City. In the central square, an iron bull gave birth to a spirit meridian. It would have been fine if that was the case, but the problem was that this was not an ordinary spirit meridian, but an innate spirit meridian. This was extremely rare. Good Lord, this should be the 12 zodiac statues. Seeing this, Fong Qingshan could not help but feel envious, especially when he saw Yi Tianqing throw out a spirit snake statue, adding another innate spirit meridian. This is good stuff. Looks like I have to work hard in the battlefield of gods and demons in exchange for a few sets of the 12 zodiac statues. Fong Qingshan blinked and muttered to himself. The innate small world, the Timeless Ark, and the future royal city would need a set of the 12 zodiac statues. Chapter 587. Now that Xianhuang's city has advanced to royal city, it's time to establish a nation. Sensing the almost identical aura of Xianhuang City and Timeless Ark, Fong Qingshan knew that Xianhuang City had completed its transformation. However, Fong Qingshan soon realized that he was overthinking things. Royal City's advancement was very different from Timeless Ark's advancement. Royal City's advancement required the path of a lucky dynasty. Not only that, but every time it advanced, it had to go through hardships and tribulations. In this regard, Timeless Ark had an advantage. In an instant, the clouds rose to the southeast, and the fog reached the northwest. Dark clouds pressed down on the city, and a storm was coming. Wisps of black smoke, invisible to the naked eye, gathered. These black smoke represented slaughter, destruction, inauspiciousness, and misfortune. In an instant, a pitch-black hole that ordinary people could not see formed without warning. At this moment, everyone in Xianhuang City felt an impending disaster. They felt uneasy, as if they were carrying the blue sky on their backs. Looking at the black hole, they saw that it was turning from illusory to real at a speed visible to the naked eye. Through the black hole, a dark world that was different from the eternal world appeared before everyone's eyes. This should be the eternal night world. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan had a vague guess. Yi Tianxing and the others represented the eternal clan under Hongjun Tiandao, as well as various alien clans. The clans in this dark world were the real alien clans, the mortal enemies of all the eternal clan. Soon, the battlefield of gods and demons would open, and they would need to compete with the Eternal Night clan. The more they killed, the more rewards they would receive from Hongjun Tiandao. While everyone else stared solemnly at the catastrophic world, Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Daoran licked their lips, their eyes shining. One of them saw resources, and the other saw luck. Buzz! The moment the black hole formed, a huge black star suddenly flew out of the dark world. It was even bigger than the Dragonwood star core that Fang Qingshan had seen in the past. It flickered with a pitch-black light, like the descent of the eternal night, and was enveloped in pitch-black flames, like the netherworld ghost fire. It whistled as it descended towards the Xianwang city. Upon seeing this, not to mention Yi Tianxing, even Fang Qingshan's expression changed. Good heavens, such a huge comet core had fallen from an unknown distance. It was one thing for a comet to crash into Earth, but it was actually not in free fall. Instead, it was continuously accelerating, and accelerating. The great Tao of the world was invincible, but only speed was unbreakable. With the weight of the star and its speed, just the thought of it was enough to make one shudder. Kill. Archers, crossbowmen, target, meteor, shoot. Sword of tongues, slash for me. Slaying immortal sword, army destroyer sword. Kill. Upon seeing this, before Yi Tianxing could make a move, the ministers, generals, and human experts beside him had already made their moves. For a moment, all kinds of attacks swept toward the descending star, trying in vain to slow him down. Unfortunately, it was all useless. Of course, wasn't completely ineffective. However, compared to the speed of the star, the slight delay was tantamount to putting out a burning cart of firewood with a cup of water. Sensing this change, many people began to feel anxious, and even despair was spreading. If they could not stop the star from falling, most of them would die once it crashed into the Xianwang city. Among those present, only Fang Qingshan, Mosquito Daoran, and Yi Tianxing could still maintain their composure. Although the situation was dangerous, it was not an unsolvable situation for them. Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Daoran knew that Yi Tianxing would definitely be fine, so they were not too worried. Moreover, even if Yi Tianxing could not do it, they would at most summon the Timeless Ark, and everyone would crash into each other to see who could compete with them. In fact, Yi Tianxing and Fang Qingshan had the same thought. It was just a crash, right? Who was afraid of who? Although the Xianwang city had advanced to a royal city, it was a place that carried the nation's destiny. In addition to the fact that there were many civilians in the city, it could not be used lightly unless it was a last resort. This was also one of the weaknesses of the royal city compared to the Timeless Arkansas. The Timeless Ark was a battle array. Even if Fang Qingshan chose a comprehensive array, there was no need to worry about it in battle. However, the royal city was different. It carried the destiny. If there was a slight mistake, the destiny would be shaken, and it would be a disaster for the nation. Fortunately, apart from the royal city, Yi Tianxing still had a natal artifact, the primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda. Go! Yi Tianxing's eyes widened. He shouted and raised his hand. The primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda flew out and expanded in the wind. In an instant, it grew to a shocking size of hundreds of meters, almost thousands of meters. It was like the exquisite pagoda of the Pagoda Heavenly Emperor. It emitted endless divine brilliance. With a domineering attitude, it collided with the dark star. This collision had the determination to destroy everything indiscriminately. This collision seemed to see the scene of the ancient desolation and Gonggong breaking Mount Buzhou. What a great primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda. It's indeed impressive. Compared to Wu Mu's Green Lotus diagram, it has its own merits. No wonder it's the treatment of the main character. Seeing this scene, Fang Qingshan could not help but sigh. In a trance, he thought he was the one driving the timeless arc to collide with the Dark Star. The primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda was a small world. Moreover, it could grow continuously. Compared to Deepong's 24 celestial planes, it was not inferior. Rumble. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the pagoda and the Dark Star collided. This collision was like an elephant's silhouette. This collision was earth-shattering and dazzling. This collision shattered time and space, and the Dark Star disintegrated. Previously, when everyone attacked at the same time, their attacks swept out like a long river. However, they only slightly slowed down the Dark Star's falling speed. They did not hurt him at all. However, at this moment, after colliding with the primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda, the Dark Star's brilliance dimmed like a candle flame swaying in the wind. Even in netherworld, ghost flames were extinguished. However, it was unknown what material this star was made of. Although the impact of the star's fall was stopped, it did not shatter into pieces. Again, Yi Tianxing breathed a sigh of relief after the crisis was averted. He immediately took out the primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda. Since the first time did not work, he would do it a few more times. Once, twice, 8 times, 10 times. Yi Tianxing did not know how long he had been slamming into the Dark Star. Finally, he heard a crisp sound. Cracks spread like ripples on the surface of the Dark Star. With a loud bang, the Dark Star shattered into countless pieces. Collect. Yi Tianxing hastily used the primordial Heavenly Emperor Pagoda to collect the Dark Star. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan's eyes lit up. Although he did not know what the Dark Star was made of, in terms of hardness, it was no weaker than the immortal bronze. If he could integrate it into the timeless arc, it would greatly benefit him. What a pity! Fang Qingshan shook his head and sighed like mosquito Dowrin. Chapter 588. Founding a Nation, Ascending the Altar to Worship the Heavens. After devouring the Star of Darkness, Yi Tianxing's Grand Mist Heavenly Emperor Pagoda gained great benefits. Among them, he also obtained an unknown black bead that was obviously more precious than the Star of Darkness. However, he did not forget his main purpose today. Therefore, he quickly calmed his mind and took out a unit altar in the Grand Mist Heavenly Emperor Pagoda. Then he stepped toward the altar step by step. For a moment, a huge pressure like when the eye of heaven descended suddenly swept the audience. Everyone present, except for Yi Tianxing, Fang Qingshan, and Mosquito Dowrin, including Huang Qingyan and the others, knelt down involuntarily. Unlike the ordinary founding system, Yi Tianxing wanted to establish a dynasty, a heavenly court. Therefore, first of all, he had to face heaven's inquisition. The altar had 81 steps, and every 9 steps was a level. In other words, Yi Tianxing must go through heaven's inquisition 9 times to reach perfection. If he made one mistake, all his efforts would be in vain. With Yi Tianxing's accumulation, coupled with the main leg halo, it was easy to climb the altar, ascending the altar to worship the heavens. Heaven's cauldron, the land of a country, the fragrance of the country, the founding jade seal, the palace, the investiture of the gods, and the imperial edict appeared one by one. 3 kneels and 9 kowtows. Establish a nation. Name Yi. Receive the mandate of heaven. Live forever and prosper. What a good dynasty, not bad at all. Fang Qingshan, who had experienced the whole process, was delighted. He was happy for both the human race and himself. Although he had experienced many worlds, and there was no lack of founding systems in some worlds. However, these established countries belonged to the human world, belonged to ordinary dynasties, not to a dynasty. The only place with a dynasty was the investiture of the gods' great world. However, the immortal world's heavenly court was in the immortal world. He had not ascended yet, so naturally he had not seen it. Although he went to the great red sky world's heavenly court, he also did not observe it much, not to mention seeing the process of their establishment from beginning to end. It was not an easy task to establish a dynasty. However, after experiencing Yi Tianxing's establishment of the Great Yi Dynasty, he could do it step by step in the future, which greatly reduced the difficulty. Today Yi Tianxing, will establish a nation. On behalf of Tian Musho, the Great Yi Dynasty shall be established. As soon as Yi Tianxing finished speaking, his voice seemed to reverberate in the spacious valley, forming an echo that naturally spread in all directions. In fact, this was not an echo, but a manifestation of Hongjun Tiandao, the Great Change Dynasty. Since the merging of the 10,000 worlds, the human race was the first dynasty of the 10,000 races. It was a dynasty with epic-making significance. The heavens and earth were singing praises. As of this moment, it wasn't just the area around Xianhuang City, the Great Change Dynasty, or the Great Change Dynasty. All of the eternal lands, both sealed and unsealed, echoed with Yi Tianxing's words. Fang Qingshan was no stranger to this scene. In a mortal world, where he transformed the void of the sun and the moon and established the five elements gate, the will of heaven and earth also manifested, and Hongjun Tiandao celebrated. Be famous as soon as possible. This was not only for individuals, but also for the dynasty. The first dynasty not only dared to take the lead and walk in front of everyone, but it also had many hidden benefits. Although it could not be said to represent the orthodox human race, it was a hurdle that no one could avoid. Imperceptibly, it could gather the hearts of the people, attract talents, and gather providence. It was simply successful in every endeavor. Of course, this was a great thing for Yi Tianxing, Xianhuang City, and the Great Yi Dynasty. However, for other people, foreign races, and even many humans, it might not be a good thing. At this moment, many people secretly cursed and even hated Yi Tianxing and the Great Yi Dynasty, but they also deeply remembered it. Naturally, Yi Tianxing did not know what other people thought, and even if he knew, he would not care. Now that he had successfully established a dynasty, and on behalf of Tian Musho, the next step was to reward them according to their contributions and confer karmic ranks. Initially, Yi Tianxing wanted to rope in Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Daoran and confer karmic ranks to them. Moreover, he wanted to give them positions below the emperor and above tens of thousands of people, but Fang Qingshan refused without hesitation. He was not a person who was willing to be under others. It would be fine if he was weak. However, now that his wings were growing, he naturally did not want to work for others. Sharing a portion of providence was naturally not as good as concentrating it on himself. He was someone who also wanted to establish a dynasty. In this regard, although Yi Tianxing felt regretful, he did not say much. A melon that was forcefully picked would not be sweet. Disregarding other things, he was quite broad-minded. All rivers run into the sea, but it was not forced. Since Fang Qingshan rejected the other party's enticement, he naturally could not stand by and watch. Moreover, he also had his own things to do now. First, he naturally had to find a treasure building suitable for the timeless ark from the Mountain of Spoils of War. Then, he naturally had to make preparations for establishing a dynasty. He had to accurately find what he needed from the Mountain of Spoils of War. Even if Fang Qingshan could divide his mind, it was a huge burden. Fortunately, this was a simple matter for Mosquito Daoran. He had countless clones and over 1 million clones of his blood mosquitoes. Within a short while, he had picked out the trophies he had collected from billions of non-humankind beings in different levels. Not only did he find a treasure unit suitable for the Timeless Ark, but he also found some treasures that could strengthen the Timeless Arkansas. Fang Qingshan picked a total of 18 treasure units suitable for the Timeless Arkansas. Of course, the reason why there were so few was naturally because they were the result of Fang Qingshan's careful selection. He would rather have nothing than have something shoddy. One of them was an inn called Pleasant Inn. Although the name was a little cliché, this treasure building was definitely extraordinary. It was not inferior to the Dragon Gate in that Yi Tianxing had encountered before. The second was a pawn shop called Pawn Shop Number 8. As long as one entered the pawn shop, one could obtain any treasure one wanted. As long as one could pay the price and had the goods, one could obtain anything Lifespan cultivation-based, divine abilities cultivation techniques. Love, wealth. Of course, it was obviously an exaggeration to say that one could pawn and obtain anything. However, as long as it was not too extreme, one could really obtain anything. The third treasure building was a river called Qinhuai River. With 100,000 strings of coins tied around one's waist, one rode a crane down Yangzhou. The jade moon and jade branches were no more, and half of the Qinhuai River had been plundered. The clear stream and the clear water reflected each other, and it was the soul of the Linshan Pavilion. This Qinhuai River was the best opportunity to relax, and it was also the real place to spend money. The women inside were not peerless beauties, but they were definitely not comparable to ordinary prostitutes. Although it was not that they only sold their skills and not their bodies. If one wanted to sell their bodies, one had to be able to pay the ransom money, and the woman had to agree. Chapter 589. If there were brothels, there would naturally be gambling dens. The fourth building with rare treasures was a gambling den called Wutsao Gambling Denver. It was named Wutsao because, according to the Shuoan, the ancient Wutsao made bets. During Xia Jie's time, Wutsao, who was Xia Jie's subject, developed the game of six bets. Of course, the gambling here was ordinary six bets: cattail play, chess, go, horse diao, mahjong, betting, flower gathering, calligraphy, and so on. Although it was ordinary, it was obviously mutated and suitable for cultivators to play. There were also two buildings with rare treasures that were similar to gambling dens. One was called the Stone Square, and the other was called the Beast Fighting Arena. In the Stone Square, there were all kinds of stones that looked no different from ordinary stones collected from all over the universe. Although they were not eye-catching, no one dared to underestimate these stones. This was because these stones might contain peerless techniques or rare treasures, just like the jadeite stones in the eyes of ordinary people. If one was lucky, fated, and had a strong source of fortune, it might be possible to obtain a primordial violet vapor or an eternal lotus seed. Just like the eternal lotus seed that Feng Qingshan obtained in the myriad pagoda in the ruined city. Wasn't it wrapped in a piece of chaotic, stubborn stone that was thrown into a group of stones? Of course, 9 out of 10 gambles would be lost. If one really wanted to rely on this to get rich, they would definitely be courting death. As the saying went, a small amount of gambling was pleasurable, a large amount of gambling was harmful, and a large amount of gambling would turn one into ashes. Most of the stones that were opened were useless. If one was lucky, there would be some value, and one could recoup some of the cost. If one was unlucky, one would lose everything. Even so, like the gambling den, people still flocked to this place because they all hoped to get lucky. They knew that it was not good to reap without sowing, and that the chances of obtaining a peerless treasure were slim. But what if they saw ghosts? As for the beast fighting arena, there were cockfighting, quail fighting, thrush fighting, wren fighting, cricket fighting, duck fighting, goose fighting, horse racing, dog racing, and so on. Of course, apart from these, there were also fights between humans and beasts, which was equivalent to a martial arts arena. This treasure was similar to the death beast fighting arena in the Bound of Yellow City that Yi Tianqing had. Other than the beast battle arena, there was also the alchemy pavilion, the crafting tower, and the Thousand Autumns Tower. There was no need to talk about the pill concocting pavilion and the smithing pavilion. As the name suggested, it was a place to concoct pills and magic treasures. As long as you can produce the materials, this place can provide you with the corresponding medicinal pills and magic treasures. As for those with special attributes, as long as you can provide the formula, there is basically not much of a problem. Of course, just like a pawn shop, although it was said that anything could be forged, there were still some things that couldn't be forged. For example, if you wanted to refine a golden elixir of 9 transformations or a post-celestial treasure, it would be beyond their capabilities. As for the Thousand Autumns Pagoda, it was named after the Thousand Autumns dream. The Buddhists were famous for their karma and grand aspirations. Whether it is the world of immortality or the world of desolation, karma and great wish are the unique skills of Buddhism. But other than karma and grand aspirations, Buddhism had another technique, which was to prove one's Tao through dreams. This was also the everlasting dream technique. One would experience reincarnation in the dream, experiencing the joys and sorrows of life and death, and so on, thereby achieving the primordial chaos Tao. Legend has it that one of the two patriarchs of Western Buddhism used the everlasting dream technique. Of course, it wasn't just Buddhism. Taoism also had similar techniques. For example, the legendary sleeping god, Patriarch Shintuan, also knew this technique. This Thousand Autumns pagoda used the law of dreams and some other special techniques to construct a world that seemed illusory and real, allowing people to continuously reincarnate within. As long as one didn't sink into it, one would naturally gain more or less after waking up. The longer one experienced, the more one would naturally gain. Although cultivating in the Thousand Autumns pagoda wouldn't increase one's cultivation, those experiences and insights wouldn't be reduced at all. In 1,000 autumns, 1,000 autumns, 1,000 autumns, 1,000 autumns dream. It might only be an instant on the outside, but thousands of reincarnations had already been experienced inside. To cultivators, this treasure was even more attractive than most of the unique treasure buildings. Although it couldn't compare to the omniscient pagoda, it was still something that people would flock to. There was also a herb garden and a Daoxiang village. The herb garden was similar to the sale unit that Wu Mu had created with the Shun Gnome's whip. There were all kinds of precious herbs inside, which could be exchanged. However, the method of bartering was used, and only herbs could be used. It could be seeds or finished products. Daoxiang village grew all sorts of grains, from normal spiritual rice to top-grade dragontooth rice, etc. There was everything one could ask for. Not only could these things satisfy one's appetite, but they could also help one cultivate. Although the effects weren't as immediate as pills, they could be used for a long time. The most important thing was that there were no pill toxins. This place also provided trading. Normal spiritual rice could be exchanged for eternal coins, and top-grade spiritual rice also had to be bartered. There was also a stargazing platform, which was where the secrets of the heavens were calculated. Any missing person notice or item notice could come here. By paying a certain price, one would be able to deduce it. Of course, things that were too overpowered wouldn't work. After all, once one's cultivation was high, one could jump out of the river of fate. However, as long as the person wasn't too strong and the thing wasn't too special, it was usually fine. The 13th treasure building was even more tempting than the previous 1,000-year tower. This thing was shaped like a pagoda, and it was called the Lantern Tree. Although the name sounded ordinary, its other name was well known. It was called the Lighthouse of Life. Once one lit a life lamp on it, it was equivalent to having an extra life. As long as one didn't erase all traces of one's existence from heaven and earth, the past, the future, and fate, even if one died, one could be reborn under the tree. What was the most important thing on the path of cultivation? Some said it was talent, some said it was fortune, some said it was techniques, some said it was a treasure to rely on, and some said there were all sorts of strange things. Yes and no. These were all important, but the most important thing was one's life. As long as one was alive, everything else would have value. If one died, then everything would be over. So, once people found out that this thing existed in the Timeless Ark, many people would come to the market. However, if one wanted to light a life lamp on the tree, one would have to pay a high price. Moreover, it wasn't a one-time use. After a certain period of time, one would need to renew the payment. Otherwise, it would automatically extinguish. In addition, the lantern tree was in the shape of a pagoda because the higher one went, the better the effect would be. However, the price would also be higher. With this thing, Fangqing Shan's harvest would come rolling in. The remaining 5 treasures were the Arrow Tower, the Ballista, the Magic Tower, the Ancient Cannon, and the Soul-Shaking Clock. These 5 treasures were all deck attack treasures. Chapter 590. Because Fangqing Shan's Timeless Ark was pieced together, it didn't even have a general shape, let alone an eternal unit. In addition, at that time, Fangqing Shan didn't have any special treasures in his hands. Therefore, When it first returned to its original form and evolved again, it only retained a general framework. Later, in order to improve the foundation of the Timeless Arc and for the better development of the Timeless Arc, Fang Qingshan had integrated the Death Scythe, the Treasurefall coin, the Nine Bends Yellow River diagram, and several other treasures. However, these were equivalent to strategic missiles, nuclear weapons, and couldn't be used casually. Otherwise, it would be like using a cannon to kill a mosquito. Moreover, even though the Timeless Arc had the Eternal Lightning Pool, the Lightning Gathering Tower, and the Eternal Divine Furnace, it couldn't attack unscrupulously. Otherwise, energy would be a big problem. This kind of attack could only be used to decide the outcome of a battle. Therefore, in addition to these sharp trump cards, the Timeless Arc also needed some conventional methods. And Fang Qingshan chose to integrate the Arrow Tower, Ballista, Magic Tower, Ancient Cannon, and Soul-Shaking Clock into the deck. The Nirvana Arc was a comprehensive, timeless Arkansas. The tower was part of the ruins, and the deck was the combat area, making money and fighting at the same time. This was also because his Timeless Arc had mutated. Each level could integrate 9 Eternal units. Otherwise, it would definitely be neither. The Arrow Tower, Ballista, Magic Tower, and Ancient Cannon were not to be mentioned. The first 2 were cold weapons, and the last 2 were equivalent to hot weapons. It was just that after the evolution, their lethality was amazing for cultivators. Especially when integrated into the Timeless Arc, their own grade would also be improved. Even if they couldn't compare to the unit weapons on the Eternal Divine Furnace, they were enough to deal with ordinary situations. The Soul-Shaking Clock was even better. It was a sound wave and soul attack weapon, which was considered an unconventional method. Compared to the Arrow Towers, Ballistae, Magic Towers, and Ancient Cannons, not only were their attacks more unpredictable, they were also more powerful. If one soul force was not strong enough, and they did not have a soul defense treasure, they would definitely be killed in one hit. Moreover, even if one soul force was powerful and they had soul-protecting treasures, under the attacks of this magic treasure, their battle prowess would be greatly reduced. Combined with the Arrow Towers, Ballistae, Magic Towers, and Ancient Cannons, it was like adding wings to a tiger. This item was similar to the Luo Pabel in Guang Qingzi's hands. It was just that the grade was slightly inferior. However, as the Timeless Arc was integrated into the Timeless Arc, it was only a matter of time before it surpassed the Luo Clock. Fuse. Fang Qingshan issued an order to the Thunder Emperor. Yes, the Thunder Emperor responded. The Timeless Arc instantly shot out a divine light, which swept the 18 treasures and swallowed them into the Timeless Arkansas. Then, the entire Timeless Arc suddenly had a layer of lightning ripples, covering the entire Timeless Arkansas. Even Fang Qingshan, the master of the Timeless Arc, couldn't see through it. Fang Qingshan didn't think much of it. He knew that the sky ship was fusing with unit treasures. It was because it had fused too many units at once. Although he couldn't see the changes in the Timeless Arc, he had dual cultivated with the Timeless Arc, so he could still feel the Timeless Arc's aura becoming stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. This time, it wasn't the unit of the Eternal Divine Furnace that was integrated into it, but the tower and the deck unit. However, the improvement to the entire Timeless Arc was comprehensive. After all, this was a comprehensive Timeless Arkansas. It wasn't enough to just have a means of attack. That would be missing arms and legs, and it would be greatly detrimental to the development of the Timeless Arkansas. In addition to these 18 treasure buildings, Fang Qingshan also integrated the treasures of heaven and earth that were useful for the Timeless Arc's hull. Among them were immortal bronze, indestructible black iron, chaos stone, 5-colored stone, and even the strange black meteorite material that Tian Xing had obtained earlier. Although these things weren't big, the number was still considerable. Although it still couldn't compare to the benefits obtained by Tian Xing's tribulation, Fang Qingshan was already satisfied. After all, Tian Xing was the protagonist, the son of heaven. He didn't know how much time had passed. It might have been a moment, or it might have been a long time. The Permitha in the void passage suddenly trembled, and the lightning dissipated. Looking at the brand new timeless ark, the corners of Fang Qingshan's mouth unconsciously cracked. The entire hull had solidified and become much heavier. It seemed like the void could not bear the weight, even if it was just placed in the void. In the ruins, a river ran through the entire ruins, and the various illusory treasure buildings in the central square also became real. On the deck, there were many towering arrow towers, ballistas, magic towers, and ancient cannons. For a time, war songs of slaughter were performed in the sky above the timeless Arkansas. It was obvious that they weren't to be trifled with, and they gave off a strong threat of death. Not bad, not bad. Fang Qingshan looked at his timeless ark fondly. Originally, because he had integrated the Death Scythe, the Nine Bends Yellow River painting, the third-grade Golden Lotus, the Treasurefall coin, and other treasures, the timeless ark had advanced from the early stage of Lingyun to the peak stage of Lingyun. However, because of the lack of foundation, it stopped advancing. Now he had integrated 18 treasure buildings and many treasures of heaven and earth. The entire timeless ark instantly broke through the shackles and reached the half-step unparalleled level. If Fang Qingshan wanted to advance, he could do so now. However, Fang Qingshan resisted this temptation. Although he had made up for the lack of foundation of the timeless ark, he was still far from advancing to unparalleled. If there were no accidents, Fang Qingshan was prepared to wait for the remaining 5 eternal units on the eternal divine furnace to be completed before advancing to the next level. Only then could he maximize the benefits. With a thought, Fang Qingshan's primordial spirit came to the ruins. He decided to experience it for himself first. In the inn, he tasted a pot of Yueli, old shop's daughter Hong, exchanged for an exquisite piece of jade in the pawn shop, and listened to a song on the Qinhuai River. Fang Qingshan did not go to the gambling house or the Colosseum. Instead, he lingered in the stone square for a while. Although he did not return empty-handed, he did not get any treasures. This place was somewhat similar to the All-Creation Tower. Even the owner of the timeless ark could not know what was in these stones. Everything had to be done according to the rules. He refined elixirs in the alchemy pavilion, refined a divine weapon in the equipment refining building, and dreamed of 1,000 years in the 1,000-year pagoda. He planted a few medicinal herbs in the herb garden, ate a bowl of dragon tooth rice in the Daoxiang village, and calculated on the observatory where to establish a country. As for the lantern tree, Fang Qingshan also gave it a try. For a moment, he had a lot of fun. Not bad, not bad. After experiencing it for himself, Fang Qingshan was completely relieved. This way, he did not have to worry about no customers coming to the ruins. Chapter 591. The timeless ark had been perfected. Next, Fang Qingshan needed to consider whether to establish a ruins market or a kingdom first. If he wanted to establish a ruins market, should he connect all the worlds on the Zhodian star map or just set up a pilot in the eternal world? If he wanted to connect all the worlds on the Zhodian star map, there would be a problem. The eternal world was still in a sealed state. If he summoned the timeless ark, it should not be too much of a problem as long as he did not use it carelessly. After all, Yitinxing Xianwang City had already reached the level of Lingyun. However, to receive so many experts from all over the universe, almost all of them were existences beyond the Dharma plane. Even in the ruins market, even with the timeless ark's concealment, such an unscrupulous act could not be hidden from Hongjun Tiandao. At that time, he would suffer a double loss. He would be excluded from the ruins market before it even opened. If he did not summon the timeless ark, he could only summon the immortal world avatar. In any case, it could not be done in the void tunnel because it was just a temporary channel opened by the celestial chessboard and was not stable. However, no matter which method he used, after the timeless ark was summoned, the other side would not be able to summon it for a short period of time. If something happened, it would be troublesome. The reason why Fang Qingshan placed the timeless ark in the void tunnel was to prevent one side from being able to summon it directly in the event of a force majeure. Of course, there was also a projection method, but the carrying capacity was not enough. Just like the ruins market that Fang Qingshan had visited before, there were restrictions on cultivation. In this case, he could set up a pilot in the eternal world. However, Fang Qingshan was somewhat unwilling. He was in a dilemma. As for establishing a kingdom, it was not an easy task. When he was at the observatory, he had already asked the Star Lord to calculate a place to establish a kingdom. He had obtained an exquisite piece of jade from the pawnshop, which could be used to refine a jade seal. The blood-colored altar that he had snatched from the blood demon ancestor could be used as a sacrificial altar. However, in addition to these, the most important thing was that he needed people. China had always been people-oriented since ancient times. With people, there would be everything. Only with people can there be an army. Only with people can there be talented people. Only with people could they gather the momentum, gather the fate, and establish a dynasty. Otherwise, Fang Qingshan would not have been able to rely on the accumulation of resources to push the village creation order to the royal city, let alone start a dynasty. Start a dynasty? Open the ruin market? Start a dynasty? Open the ruin market? Start a dynasty. Open the ruin market. The past 2 years of tossing and turning in bed echoed in Fang Qingshan's mind. After a long time, Fang Qingshan finally made up his mind. He would not establish a fate dynasty, nor would he open a market. Instead, he would first establish a base. The main reason was that Rome was not built in a day, and the Yunqing dynasty could not be established overnight. Therefore, he wanted to first establish a base and then quickly develop it to a certain scale. Then, he would borrow the power of the ruins market to spread the name of the country. Regardless of where it was, the number one would always be mentioned by others. It would always be a great advantage, occupying a portion of luck. For example, first place, second place, third place, champion, runner-up, and third place. People were used to talking about the top scholar and the champion. As for the second place, and second place, who would remember? The World United Root Tea, the first tea tree. Although it was acquired, it was comparable to a top innate spiritual root because it was the first. Kong Xian, the first peacock. The five-color divine light shook the world. Dipankara, the first coffin, completed the ancient Dipankara Buddha of the past. Yi Tianxing established the first dynasty since the fusion of the worlds. The Fate dynasty was celebrated and sung by the heavens. As for the second dynasty, with the Grady dynasty as the precedent, it would not be fresh in people's memory without special means. Therefore, Fang Qingshan decided to use the uniqueness of the ruins market to spread the name of the dynasty that he was about to establish. As for the opening of the ruins market, there was no need to worry so much. Fang Qingshan was prepared to open a pilot in Eternal Kingdom, just to try it in this sealed world. That way, first of all, he would not have to summon the timeless arc to obstruct Hongjun Tiandao's eyes. He only needed to project it. Then, although this was only a sealed world, although the level of power was not high, it did not mean that there were no treasures here. It was just lacking. After all, the worlds had just fused. It was like the beginning of heaven and earth, and treasures could be seen everywhere. Without further ado, Fang Qingshan immediately walked out of his seclusion and bade farewell to Yi Tianxing. Brother Qingshan, are you leaving now? Did we fail to provide you with any hospitality? After hearing Fang Qingshan's farewell, Yi Tianxing knew that all good things must come to an end. Since Fang Qingshan rejected his invitation, he would leave sooner or later. However, he did not expect this moment to come so soon. The reason why he could not bear to part with Fang Qingshan was not because of gay feelings. It was because of the cultivation of Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin, at a time when a human race was at a disadvantage, who would not want to have such experts on their side. Even if they did not join the Grady dynasty, it was also good to settle down here. This was a form of deterrence and foundation. Every parting is for the sake of a better meeting next time. Fang Qingshan smiled. King, he has already established the nation. I can't fall too far behind. The mountains will not change, and the rivers will continue to flow. We'll meet again. Looking at Fang Qingshan and Taoist when leaving, Yi Tianxing could not help but have a flash of realization in his eyes, and he seemed to be deep in thought. It's a pity. It would be great if these two almighties could stay in our bound of Yellow City. The officials and generals around Fong Qingshan could not help but sigh. Ever since they witnessed Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran's combat abilities in the battle outside the bound of Yellow City, almost everyone respected and liked them. It was a pity that they could not be officials in the same imperial court. They even parted after a short meeting, and no one knew when they would meet again. I think it won't be long before we meet again. By then, I'm afraid we should address Brother Qingshan as King Fong. Yi Tianqing mumbled to himself. King Fong. Upon hearing Yi Tianqing's words, everyone behind him could not help but be stunned. At this moment, they finally understood why Fong Qingshan rejected Yi Tianqing's olive branch. It turned out that he wanted to establish the nation on his own. However, they were not optimistic about this. Although Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran had a high cultivation base, establishing a nation was not something that could be achieved with a high cultivation base. Take Yi Tianqing, for example. The bound of Yellow City rose from insignificance. He had gone through many hardships to achieve what he had today. Apart from their cultivation bases, how could Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran compare to them? Although the others were not optimistic about Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran, Yi Tianqing had a feeling that this day was not far away. Naturally, Fong Qingshan did not know what Yi Tianqing and the people of the bound of Yellow City were thinking. Even if he knew, he would not care. Facts spoke louder than words. When that day arrived, everything would be settled. Chapter 592. He and the Mosquito Taoist performed the greater teleportation technique and left the Xianhuang city and the Great Yi dynasty. They came to a place that was far away from them. This was the most suitable place to establish a nation according to the calculations of the Star Observatory. The reason why they left so far away was not only because it was suitable, but also because they had to avoid being bordered by Xianhuang City. Establishing a nation from nothing was indeed not an easy task. However, for Fong Qingshan, it was not as difficult as most people in Xianhuang City did not think it was. Building a nation required many things, but the most important ones were people, territory, resources, military force, centripetal force, and will. People were the most important. A nation was made up of thousands of families, and a family was the smallest nation. People were the basic elements of a family. Everything was possible only with people. Without people, even if one occupied the entire world and piled up resources like the sea, so what? They were just dead things. Of course, this did not mean that territory and resources were useless. It was just that the premise was that there were people. With people, there was a need for territory and resources. Without territory, there was nowhere to put them. Without resources, survival would be a problem, not to mention cultivation. As for military force, it was even easier to explain. Where there were people, there would be martial arts. Not just people, but as long as there were living things, there would be circles and fights. The law of the jungle, the survival of the fittest. This was something that had been vividly demonstrated since the fusion of the 10,000 worlds. The human race was weak, so they were suppressed and killed by many foreign races. If it weren't for the innate, indomitable will of the human race, the innate body constitution suitable for cultivation, and the fact that the time it took for them to become powerful experts was 10 times, even 100 times shorter than that of the other races, they might have been devoured by the non-human kind long ago. If they wanted to resist the foreign races and deal with unknown dangers, they needed to prepare for a rainy day, and they needed military force to protect themselves. Even in the so-called peaceful times, military force could not be given up, let alone in this time, when all living things were competing for freedom. Political power came from the barrel of a gun, and the barrel of a gun was military force. However, it was not only about political power, but also to protect everything you wanted to protect and take what you wanted to take. As long as you were strong enough, even if the world was created and chaos reappeared, so what? As for centripetal force and willpower, although they sounded a little vague, they were real and extremely important. Centripetal force was the degree of recognition the people had toward the country. The higher the degree of recognition, the greater the potential of the country and the faster the development would be. There would not be a situation where the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls and fly off in the face of a disaster. Willpower was even more important. This was the confidence of a strong man who would be killed no matter how far away he was. This was when Tianxiang, since ancient times, who had not died, the will to leave behind a loyal heart that would shine in history. It was the leap from the cliff. It was the emperor of the great Ming dynasty guarding the gates of the country. It was the death of the emperor. It was the blood of every inch of the land and rivers of the Republic of China. This was a nation, the backbone of a country. Only with them would the country not be sick. No matter how dangerous it was, they would be able to fight their way out of adversity. Why was the great Yi dynasty able to establish a nation so smoothly? It meant that they already had a sense of unity and will. In other words, it was the will of the people, exchanging the will of the people for the will of the heavens. For Fang Qingshan, resources, territory, and military force were the simplest things. Even if he could not guarantee invincibility in terms of military force, Fang Qingshan could still be said to be standing at the top of the food chain in the entire eternal world. This was the biggest reason why he could establish a nation. One man, one country. For resources, he had just killed billions of alien races and plundered countless treasures. For the sake of establishing a nation, Fang Qingshan did not even hand them over to mosquito Daoran to devour. Thus, he did not lack them for the time being. As for territory, it was even easier. It was the same as resources. Snatch. Wherever my gaze goes, wherever my flag goes, is all my territory. For others, these were the three most difficult conditions. However, for Fang Qingshan, they were the easiest. As for humans, it was not that difficult. At present, there were many humans in the wilderness who had lost their homes and were in a precarious situation. In fact, many alien races had even captured humans and raised them as livestock. Some even used them as food. As long as he saved them, he would have his citizens. Furthermore, it was just like how Mosquito Daoran had created millions of doppelgangers to select treasures. It was too easy for him to send out all his doppelgangers to rescue humans and attack alien races. On the other hand, the sense of unity, will, and the will of the people were very difficult for him, because he could not be like Yi Tianxing, who had led the people from their humble beginnings and walked out step by step, sharing life and death, going through trials and tribulations together. Without such experiences, reaching the level of the will of the people was not something that could be achieved overnight. It required the accumulation of time. Otherwise, even if he managed to establish a nation within a short period of time, this nation would only be supported by Fang Qingshan's prestige. If something happened to him, the entire nation would probably collapse overnight. However, for these people who had experienced the apocalypse, as long as there was a stable place, they would protect it with all their might. Even if they died, they would have no regrets. After a period of time, the will of the people could be quickly established. Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Daoran had flown for an unknown period of time. Although their cultivation levels had been suppressed, the speed of the greater teleportation technique had not decreased at all. Furthermore, with the support of the Khanate small world and the world tree in their bodies, they were exactly the same as when they were not suppressed. At this speed, after flying for an unknown period of time, they were already very far away from Xinhuang City. Even with the cultivation level of the Dharma plane, without some special treasures, it would be impossible to reach this place without decades or centuries. Fang Qingshan landed at a place that he had long calculated. Although this place was desolate, it was not just this place. In fact, there was no city built in a large area. This was the territory of the alien races. Humans were unlucky enough to land here. Apart from a few people who barely managed to hide, most of them fell into the hands of the alien races. They were either kept as livestock or turned into food. You must have a death wish. Although Fang Qingshan had long since passed the age of the angry youth, he could not help but feel angry when he saw the fate of the human race. After all, he was also a human, and it was natural for him to feel sad for his own kind. Mosquito Daoran, go and purge all the alien races within a radius of 10,000 miles. Fang Qingshan said coldly to Mosquito Dowrin. Watch carefully. Mosquito Dowrin licked his lips when he heard this, and his eyes shone with a bloodthirsty light. With a shake of his body, the infinite blood mosquito doppelgangers flew out and flew in all directions. Purging a radius of 10,000 miles was not only to save the people, but also to pave the way for future expansion. Another reason was that since the alien races dared to eat humans, they would naturally become food for Mosquito Dowrin. Chapter 593. Although the quality was not good, the quantity made up for it. No matter how small a mosquito was, it was still meat, wasn't it? Of course, this was the least of the gains. Other than the people, the biggest gain was the fate. After destroying these foreign races, their fate belonged to Fang Qingshan. Not to mention the treasures they obtained from the fusion of worlds, they also became Fang Qingshan's possessions. Other than the foreign races with special methods, treasures, or great fate, almost everyone else became souls under Mosquito Dowrin's mouth. Blood flowed like rivers. The number of deaths was definitely no less than the foreign races outside bound of Yellow City. Outside the bound of Yellow City, Fang Qingshan had killed billions of alien races, and the providence he obtained had only been given to Etian Xing, but the bound of Yellow City had already reached the half-step unparalleled providence. As for the treasures, there was no need to even mention them. The treasures they brought with them outside the Black Yellow City were already piled up like a mountain in the innate small world. Now, even their lair was raided. Wouldn't the harvest be doubled? With the number and strength of Mosquito Dowrin's clones, with Fang Qingshan as the center, the foreign races within a radius of 10,000 miles were annihilated. On a plain, cows and sheep could be seen. The green waves were like the sea, and the fragrance was fragrant. A river meandered through the entire plain. Everything seemed so quiet and comfortable. Those who didn't know would think it was some paradise. This was the most suitable place for the establishment of a nation that Fang Qingshan deduced by the star observation platform. Not only because there were many humans nearby, but there were no major human forces. It was convenient for him to win the hearts of the people and expand. Not because this place was far from bound of Yellow City and Grady Dynasty. Not because the foreign races here were stupid and rich. It was because there was a dragon vein that was still being nurtured under this plain. This was a natural king's land. Because this place needed to nurture the dragon vein and the divine items were hidden. This place seemed very barren. Other than a few humans who came here to hide from the foreign races normally wouldn't appear here. However, the plains were densely packed with countless humans today. Some of them were numb, some were terrified, and some were crazy. Only a few of them were able to maintain their composure. Of course, these human beings were the captured human beings that Fang Qingshan told Mosquito Dowrin to save from the non-human kind. Although they had escaped from the outsiders, no one cheered, because they had just escaped from the wolf's den and entered the tiger's mouth. In their eyes, the outsiders were already extremely terrifying, but compared to the person who brought them out of the outsiders and brought disaster to the outsiders, they couldn't even be mentioned in the same breath. If they fell into the hands of the non-human kind, they might still have a chance to escape. However, if they fell into the hands of the blood Taoist who could devour the heavens and devour the earth, they might not be able to see the light of day. Especially when he saw Mosquito Dowrin standing beside Fang Qingshan, a sense of despair and relief began to spread. It was the complete abandonment of hope. Fang Qingshan wasn't too concerned about this. After all, these people had first experienced the great calamity and the fusion of the 10,000 worlds. Following that, they had fallen from being the masters of nature to being slaves and food for the outsiders. Naturally, it wasn't surprising for them to behave like this. On the other hand, it was those who did not give up even though they had reached such a stage. They gave up on themselves and abandoned themselves to despair, which attracted Fang Qingshan's attention. No matter who these people were in the past, the fact that they could not be defeated by adversity was a talent. Fang Qingshan had Taoist Wen's millions of clones, so he didn't have to worry about martial arts, let alone governing the country. However, since he had founded the country, as the king, he couldn't do everything by himself. Otherwise, it was not impossible for him to be indebted to others. With the addition of these people, he would be able to build up his empire even faster. However, the most important thing now wasn't to recruit them, but to reactivate the hearts of those who had already fallen and abandoned themselves. Raise your heads and open your eyes wide. Although Fang Qingshan's voice wasn't loud, it fell clearly in everyone's ears. It was as if it had magic power, causing them to raise their heads and open their eyes uncontrollably. Then, Fang Qingshan waved his hand and performed a mirrored flowers reflected moon. A huge round mirror towered above everyone's heads. It rippled like a breeze blowing across the surface of a lake. Then, one scene after another appeared on the mirror. First, hundreds of millions of foreign races besieged Xianhuang City under the leadership of the Golden Behemoth King. Then, Yi Tianqing led the people of Xianhuang City to resist. Finally, Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Darren attacked and made almost all the foreign races stay. Then, Xianhuang City advanced to a monarch city, and Yi Tianqing established the country. Everything was clearly reflected in everyone's mind, as if they were personally there. Not long ago, Mosquito Darren attacked and killed the foreign races within a radius of 10,000 miles, rescuing them from the foreign races. At this point, the scenes stopped abruptly. The mirrored flowers, reflected moon disintegrated with a bang and turned into specks of fluorescent light that fell on the bodies of the humans on the plain. For a moment, everyone was refreshed, and their pores seemed to have relaxed. I'm Fang Qingshan human. Just when everyone was experiencing the long-awaited comfort, Fang Qingshan's voice was heard again. This is Mosquito Darren. Although he's not human, he's no doubt a human. You've been rescued, but you're not free because this is the eternal land. Without strength and influence, you can only become slaves and food for the foreign races. I've already wiped out the foreign races in the vicinity, so it's safe for now. Think about what you should do next. Sir, I wonder if you're willing to lead us to build our own country like Kingy did? As soon as Fang Qingshan's voice fell, a voice shouted at the top of its lungs. When the others heard this, they immediately looked over. Their eyes were filled with anticipation and apprehension. Just as Fang Qingshan had said, although they had been rescued, it was only for a short period of time. Once Fang Qingshan left, they would not have any strength left and would most likely fall back into the hands of the outsiders in no time. However, if Fang Qingshan was willing to lead them, like Yi Tianqing in the scenes, then they might be able to live like the people of the Grady dynasty, or even better. This was because Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dorn's power was too strong. Everyone naturally wanted to gather around him, especially in this precarious era. Following the strong was their only choice. Fang Qingshan originally only wanted to use them to build a country and gain the upper hand, so that he could plan for providence and cultivation resources. However, when those pairs of expectant eyes stared at him, he couldn't help but be shaken. Chapter 594. It's my duty as a teacher. As a member of the human race, I'm naturally duty-bound. Fang Qingshan nodded resolutely and spoke passionately. Yi Tianqing was able to lead the bound of Yellow City to carve out a new world and establish the great Yi dynasty. How can we be willing to fall behind? I'm willing to lead everyone to carve out a new world for the human race, for everyone, and for ourselves. We'll build a nation that belongs to us. Is everyone willing? In the beginning, Fang Qingshan's words were merely empty words. His ultimate goal was merely to earn his own luck and resources. However, at this moment, he was more sincere. Naturally, this was something that couldn't be faulted. Everything in the world came for benefits, and everything in the world came for benefits. Nobody was selfless and had no desires. Even saints had their own selfish desires, let alone Fang Qingshan. As for Fang Qingshan's objective, the others naturally did not know. Even if they knew, they would not be bothered. As long as he could lead them out of their predicament and live like humans, that would be the greatest grace he could give them. If they could still stand tall in the world and laugh proudly at the world, shouting that those who offend the human race will be killed no matter how far away they are. Fang Qingshan was where their faith was. Even if they were asked to die, they would not hesitate for a moment. Yes, yes, yes. Everyone became excited when they heard Fang Qingshan's words. For a moment, the entire sky above the plain was filled with excitement. At this moment, everyone was brimming with the hope of a new life. All right, since everyone is willing to believe in me, Qingshan will definitely not disappoint you. Fang Qingshan nodded. The hearts of the people could be used. Although it was still too early to raise the hearts of the people, and these people were willing to follow him because he could bring them safety, Fang Qingshan believed that they would become his most loyal believers sooner or later, just like how the people of the great Yi dynasty trusted Yi Tianqing. As he spoke, Fang Qingshan flipped his hand and took out a token from his bosom. One side of the token had the word Jian written in ancient seal script. The other side was engraved with a relief sculpture that outlined a prosperous scene similar to the along the river during the Qingming festival. A village creation order. It was a platinum-grade village creation order. Not from outside the Black-Yellow City, but when Mosquito Dowrin was purging the outsiders within a radius of 10,000 miles. The village creation medallion was split into iron, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. The higher the grade of the village creation order, the easier it would be to advance in the future, and the deeper the foundation would be. This was the same principle as the timeless Arkansas. An ordinary timeless arc would only have 1 or 2 eternal units like black iron. A slightly better bronze would have 3, silver would have 4 or 5, gold would have 6 or 7, and only platinum would have 9. Not only in the long run, but also in the beginning, it was a complete victory. Fang Qingshan was lucky. The non-human kind wasn't used to building cities. Otherwise, after all the worlds had fused for so long, not to mention platinum grade, even gold grade village creation orders were extremely rare. This was all thanks to his actions outside Xianhuang City, as well as the cleansing of the outsiders in a 5,000-kilometer radius, which allowed him to receive the outsider's destiny. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to obtain the Platinum Village Creation Order so easily. Fang Qingshan tossed the Village Creation Order into the air. With a flick of his finger, a drop of blood fell into it. He muttered the 2 words Soaring Cloud in his heart. The reason he chose this name was to keep up with the legendary Soaring Cloud Palace of the Heavenly Court. Whoosh! A white light flashed. It naturally began to spread in all directions. In an instant, the area within a 3-kilometer radius was covered in white light. After a long while, the white light dissipated, revealing a mansion made of an unknown wood standing naturally on the ground. It sat in the north and faced the south. It looked very grand and simple. Not far away, a memorial archway stood tall, and on the plaque, 2 ancient characters appeared, soaring firmament. Originally, when a village was built, the world would spread its name. The Iron Village Creation Order could transmit one's voice within a 1,000-kilometer radius. The Platinum name could spread throughout the entire Eternal Continent. Sometimes, reputation was useless, but it was extremely important at other times. For example, Yi Tianqing was the first to build a dynasty. However, it was a pity that although Fang Qingshan had used the Platinum Village Creation Medallion, it had been too long since the infinite worlds had fused and was too far behind. Even though it was the Platinum Village Creation Medallion, the Heavenly Tao had not made it famous. Fang Qingshan did not care about this at all. He had long expected this situation. That was why he planned to use the convenience of the timeless Ark Ruins Market to spread the name of the Soaring Cloud Village. Everyone, this will be our home from now on. Although the village had just been built, Fang Qingshan seemed to have seen it take off and turn into a royal city on the level of Lingyan. He could not help but nod in satisfaction. I hope everyone can work hard and turn it into the real Soaring Cloud Palace of the Heavenly Court. 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 Hearing Fong Qingshan's words, everyone could not help but feel their blood boil. As the descendants of Yin and Huang, who did not know what the soaring cloud palace of the heavenly court was, at that moment, everyone was filled with enthusiasm. They seemed to have seen the moment when the soaring cloud village turned into the soaring cloud palace of the heavenly court. Although many of them could not wait until that day, they were no longer walking corpses now that they had hope in their hearts. You, and you stepped forward. Fong Qingshan called out a group of people one after another. These people were all people that Fong Qingshan had observed previously. Although they had experienced hardships, they were unwavering and indomitable people. Greetings, village chief. Although they did not know why Fong Qingshan called them out, they still did as he said. Although you're in a precarious and hopeless situation, you're still able to maintain your original heart and never give up. It's obvious that you're rare talents. Fong Qingshan first praised them before saying, now that the soaring cloud village has been rebuilt, there are many things waiting to be done. Now, Soaring Firmament Village is newly built, and there are many things waiting to be done. I need everyone to work hard with me. Yes, village chief. Everyone responded in unison. Good. Fong Qingshan said good 3 times and then asked, may I know your names? I'm Wang Wu. I'm Fong Yuan. I'm Fong Xianling. I'm Zhang Lei. I'm Lin Rahai. I'm Ling Hu Feng. The 12 of them called out their names one by one. Putting aside the others, Fong Xianling and Lin Rahai were 2 names that pierced through Fong Qingshan's ears like thunder. Fong Xianling was one of Du Duan, one of Tang Taizong's most important strategists. He was one of Lingyan Pavilion's 24 meritorious officials and the Prime Minister's residence's talent. He was not any weaker than the capable people of the past. Lin Rahai was a character from Dream of the Red Chamber. He had been through 2 dynasties. Ordinary people would not even be able to serve 1 term as the Salt Patrol Imperial Censor, but he was able to serve until his death. Furthermore, he did not reduce the salt tax and instead gave it to the Imperial Censor. Apart from these 2, Wang Wu was not simple either. He was brimming with a heroic aura. Fong Qingshan could not help but think of a great man in the late Qing dynasty. Chapter 595. As for the others, although they were not famous people in history and could not compare to Fong Xianling, Lin Rahai, and Wang Wu, they were able to maintain their nature under such circumstances. Just this point alone showed that they were not weaker than others. Moreover, there were only a few who could be recorded in history. Countless heroes were buried in history. These people might not be inferior to Fong Xianling and the others. As long as they were given time, experience more, and broaden their horizons, it was only a matter of time before they became great people. Brother Wang, later, you will choose the strong people to cut down trees and build houses in the surroundings. Yes, Brother Rahai, later, you will choose the literate people and start to register them, especially the area about their specialties. Yes, Elder Fong, later, I will need you to coordinate and fill in the gaps. Yes, Zhang Lei, later, you will Ling Hu Feng. After making arrangements for everyone, Fong Qingshan brought Mosquito Dowrin into the building created by the Platinum Village building order. After entering, Fong Qingshan quickly sensed a special place. This was a mysterious alternate dimension. There was nothing in it except for a pool. Fong Qingshan could be said to be all too familiar with the things in this pool. After all, whether it was transmigration or the advancement of the all-heaven chessboard, it all depended on him. Providence. However, compared to the providence in the all-heaven chessboard, the providence here was not only incomparable in terms of quantity, but also in quality. The providence in the all-heaven chessboard had already started to spread toward Quan Jin, but the providence here was all gray. However, this was only because the village had just been established. When it reached the level of Xianhuang City, it would naturally transform into gold or even purple. The heavenly pool of providence was not big. It was 9 feet high, and there was only a thin layer of providence at the bottom. Inside, a malnourished little golden carp was swimming back and forth. As if sensing Fang Qingshan's arrival, it would jump out of the water from time to time and stare at Fang Qingshan with joy and admiration in its eyes. This was a providence spirit, just like the peacock of the Five Elements sect. Fang Qingshan took a look and left the space of providence. Walking out of the mansion, he saw that everything in Soaring Sky Village was proceeding in an orderly manner. With Fang Xianling as the core and controlling everything, Lin Rahai, Wang Wu, and the others assisted him, or cut down trees to build a house, or collect food, or make a fire to cook, or weave clothes, or regardless of men or women, old or weak, everyone worked in full swing and did not complain about being tired at all. Compared to the precarious days in the past, they were too happy now. They had something to look forward to, and everyone's faces were filled with a happy smile. Everyone performed their duties in an orderly manner. Not bad, not bad. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan was overjoyed. Village Chief. Although Fang Qingshan had ordered Mosquito Dowren to purge the non-humankind within a radius of 10,000 miles and gain hundreds of thousands of human beings, the Mosquito Dowren didn't have enough human beings. But in the hands of Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, and the others, ruling a large country was like cooking a small fish, not to mention this small number of people. Therefore, they quickly discovered Fang Qingshan. Of course, this was because Fang Qingshan didn't hide his figure. Good. With everyone's help, there's no need to worry about failure. Fang Qingshan first praised, then said, "Everyone, please come with me. Everyone, please follow me. Let's discuss what we should do next." Fang Qingshan asked Fang Xianling to leave the rest of the matters to others, then brought them to the mansion. "Everyone, it's been a long time since the fusion of the 10,000 worlds, and we've fallen behind a lot. If we don't catch up, I'm afraid we'll really be eliminated. In order to better and faster develop Soaring Sky Village, I wonder if everyone has any good suggestions?" Fang Qingshan used all his strength and asked the crowd. Then he added, "Don't worry about the problem of resources. There's no need to worry about resources. I've already wiped out the non-humankind within a radius of 10,000 miles. In the short term, we only need to worry about development." Originally, when everyone heard Fang Qingshan say that Soaring Sky Village's development had fallen behind, and if they didn't speed up development, they would be eliminated, their hearts felt heavy. But when they heard Fang Qingshan say that they didn't need to worry about resources, they immediately became spirited. Money wasn't everything, but not having money was impossible. If a country wanted to develop quickly, it naturally couldn't do without resources. Why was the imperial emperor able to pursue the Han dynasty and Sealang Jushu? It was because the previous 2 generations of emperors had laid a solid foundation for him, and the national treasury was full. "Village Chief, I think we can do this." Therefore, after knowing that they didn't need to worry about resources, everyone began to offer their suggestions. Especially Fang Xianling, known as Fang Mao, he naturally had the most ideas. Although Lin Rahai couldn't compare to Fang Xianling, he was someone who had gone through many trials and tribulations in Jiangnan's complicated officialdom, so he also had many ideas. The others, including Wang Wu, were not bad, but in terms of looking at the big picture, they weren't on the same level as the 2 of them. Of course, this wasn't a matter of talent. It was a matter of experience and vision. They believed that after a period of training, they would improve rapidly. After listening to Fang Xianling and the other suggestions, Fang Qingshan concluded with 4 words: clear rewards and punishments. As long as they could clear rewards and punishments, other infrastructure, food and clothing issues, military construction, and so on, will be able to run smoothly. After all, governance depended on people. If a team or a country wanted to run smoothly, it would be enough as long as they managed good people. Combining this with Bao Huang cities and Yi Tianqing's methods, Fang Qingshan made his first decision: to establish a meritorious service system. However, before that, he first had to improve everyone's strength. This was the Eternal Continent, a place where thousands of ships fought and thousands of clans resided. Everything else was illusory, and only strength was fundamental. Although Fang Qingshan was powerful, He couldn't possibly take responsibility for everything that happened in the future. If he wanted to improve his strength, he would first need a cultivation technique. Most of the people here had been captured by the foreign tribes, so they didn't have anything valuable on them. Even if they did have anything in the past, they were taken away by the foreign tribes. Of course, they were now in Fang Qingshan's hands. Although Fang Qingshan wouldn't return them to them, he could follow Yi Tianqing's example and set up a sutra library. He would put all the cultivation technique books he had collected inside. Any citizen of High Firmament Village could receive a basic cultivation technique and a basic martial technique for free. Of course, although they were only basic cultivation techniques and martial techniques, they were still top-notch foundation building techniques, and there would be no problem changing cultivation techniques. If they wanted to improve in the future or cultivate other, more powerful cultivation techniques, martial techniques, or divine abilities, they would have to make contributions to High Firmament Village and exchange contribution points for them. Even so, after hearing this news, everyone, including Fang Xianling, was excited. After all, they had suffered too many losses over the years due to their lack of strength. Chapter 596. Go! Next to the mansion that Hongjun Tiandao had evolved, Fang Qingshan raised his hand, and a Linglong treasure pavilion flew out. It expanded in the wind, and in an instant, it turned into a huge 9-story building. It was made of wood and emitted the fragrance of books. There was a fluorescent light that seemed to be the light of wisdom. Simple and unadorned, grand and natural. Scripture Pavilion. This item was similar to the scripture pavilion that Fang Qingshan had obtained in the ancient Haven Palace in the Great World of Rulers. It was just that its grade was incomparable. They were both special construction artifacts. Although they had no offensive or defensive abilities, they could store all kinds of scriptures. Wealth, companionship, method, and land were not just the 4 elements of cultivation. They were also the foundation of a sect. This scripture pavilion not only contained the cultivation methods, mystiques, secret scrolls, and battle skills that Fang Qingshan had snatched from the foreign races, but also pills, formations, weapons, talismans, and other cultivation arts. At the same time, Fang Qingshan had copied many of the things in the original scripture pavilion. It was all-inclusive. It could be said that the foundation of this scripture pavilion was even greater than the one in Xianwang City. Make the golden halberd battle art a basic cultivation method for soldiers. Any soldier can obtain it for free. Make the 5 elemental qi a free cultivation method for all commoners, regardless of gender or status. Other than that, everyone can obtain a battle skill for free. However, nothing obtained from the scripture pavilion can be leaked. You have to swear an oath in Hongjun Tiandao. Those who break the oath will be consigned to eternal damnation. After setting up the scripture pavilion, Fang Qingshan set up the rules and then left. As soon as he left, all the commoners of Lingxiao village swarmed towards the scripture pavilion. In this chaotic world, if you rely on a mountain, the mountain will collapse. If you rely on water, the water will flow. If you rely on people to walk, the safest thing is to have the ability to protect yourself. They were too unlucky. Once they entered the everlasting world, they were immediately captured by the foreign races, and their treasures were taken away. As a result, they were far behind the people of other places. One step behind meant that they would always be behind. They were already behind, so they naturally had to catch up, although the free ones were only basic cultivation methods and martial skills. But for everyone, as long as they could cultivate and increase their strength, it didn't matter if it was a basic skill or a consummate skill. Even if it was a basic skill, it wasn't impossible to cultivate it. The old urchin trained in the Chuanjin sword technique and became one of the 5 uniques of the world. Fu Hongxue trained in the drawing saber technique and became unparalleled in the world. Fortunately, the scripture depository was a completely different world. Although thousands of people surged in, it didn't seem crowded after entering. Originally, it was impossible to give it to everyone, and there wasn't enough to go around. Fortunately, the Sutra Depository had the ability to copy cultivation methods. After everyone received the cultivation method and martial skill, they couldn't wait to go back and cultivate. In this regard, Fang Qingshan did not mind. He understood their feelings, but other than a small number of people, it was impossible for them to succeed in one go. As for those who could soar into the sky, they were naturally Wang Wu, Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, and the others. And the reason why they could advance so quickly was also because they had accumulated enough. Although Fang Qingshan said that other than the free basic cultivation method and martial skill, everything else had to be exchanged with contribution points. But special cases were special. For this group of people, Fang Qingshan still opened the back door, allowing them to get on the train first before paying for their tickets. Sure enough, a day later, other than Wang Wu, Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, and the others who couldn't stop after cultivating and became experts in a short period of time, the others were only at the entry level. Even so, everyone's enthusiasm didn't decrease at all. Fortunately, with Fang Xianling and the others leading them, they didn't do anything this time and focused on cultivating. But Fang Qingshan didn't care about them. With Fang Xianling and the others guiding them, if they still couldn't do these things in an orderly manner, Fang Qingshan would suspect that he had encountered a fake. But at this moment, what was he doing? With a wave of his hand, Fang Qingshan added some rare treasure buildings around Lingxiao City. He didn't add some arrow towers, ballistae, cannon turrets, magic towers, and other offensive weapons like Xianwang City, because there was no need. The reason why Xianwang City needed them was because they had risen from humble beginnings. These were all necessary weapons. But now, the area within 10,000 miles of Soaring Firmament Village had been cleansed, so no one would come to attack. And Lingxiao City was going to be the capital in the future. If someone came here, these so-called conventional weapons might not be completely useless, but they would at least be a drop in the bucket. Of course, this didn't mean that Lingxiao Village didn't need offensive units. It just didn't need the arrow towers, which were ordinary and obvious offensive weapons. But with a wave of Fang Qingshan's hand, a drum tower and a clock tower were erected. The twilight drum and morning bell. They could tell the time and attack when there was danger, and their power wasn't something the arrow towers could compare to. In addition, there was also a lighthouse. Just like Xianhuang City, it could light up a radius of 10,000 miles and guide the nearby humans who were lost in the wilderness to gather. To the human race, this was the light of hope. But to the foreign races, it was the light of death. Just like the twilight drum and morning bell, this lighthouse could also be attacked. Not only could it emit the light of death, but a single spark could also start a prairie fire. There was also a prison, a fountain, a mutated spirit root, a well, and an academy. The prison was different from the dimensional tesseract in Xianwang City. This was a real prison. Any criminal who was sent here to be suppressed would basically have no chance of escaping. The fountain was called the Peacock Rainbow Spring. It looked like a peacock, and the fountain was like a peacock spreading its tail. Not only was it beautiful, but the water from the fountain could also relieve fatigue when it landed on the body. The mutated spirit root was called the fiery tree silver flower. It was planted on both sides of the road. As the saying went, the fiery tree silver flower never slept. At night, it complemented the peacock spring. The well was called the Medicine King's Well. Not only was the water sweet and delicious, but it was also very effective. It could prevent and treat ordinary diseases. The academy was just an ordinary academy and couldn't be compared to Jixia Academy. But learning from it could still yield twice the results with half the effort. In addition, there were some other miscellaneous buildings. Not only could they improve the entire Lingxiao village, but they could also raise the standard of living of the people. And the people who had escaped death with great difficulty and lived a happy life naturally cherished everything they had now. Other than diligently cultivating at night, most of the young adults went to join the army during the day, either to practice battle formations or to open up the wilderness. The women were led by Old Woman Huang, who made cotton and woven cloth. Old Woman Huang was that extraordinary woman in history. This was discovered by Lin Ruhai when he was tallying up the population and their specialties. As for the old people, they didn't stay idle either. They did what they could. As for the children, they were all sent to the academy by Fong Qingshan. It took 10 years to grow trees, but 100 years to nurture people. Chapter 597. Because Fong Qingshan did not lack resources, Soaring Firmament Village did not go through the period where everyone shared everything. Instead, it transitioned directly to private ownership. Distribution according to work, more pay for more work. Moreover, after going through those dark times, they cherished their hard-earned lives, and no one slacked off. The most important thing was still contribution. In the short term, if they wanted to obtain good things, they could only rely on contribution points to exchange. Although Fong Qingshan had already introduced a currency, which was the same as the timeless arc, it was obvious that money could buy many things. But obviously, money could buy a lot of things, but the real good things could only be obtained through contribution points other than bartering. To earn contribution points, one had to make contributions to Soaring Firmament Village, no matter how big or small. One could open up wastelands, farm, weave, join the army, teach, show off their skills, or even offer advice. No matter what one did, as long as it was beneficial to Soaring Firmament Village, one could earn contribution points. Of course, the amount of contribution points was distributed according to one's contributions. There were only 2 ways to earn permanent contribution points. One was to join the army. As a professional soldier, apart from necessities and money, contribution points were also part of the army's pay. Precisely because of this, there was an endless stream of people joining the army. If not for Fong Qingshan asking Wang Wu to raise the selection standards, almost all the adult men would have joined the army. The other was the civil servants, such as Fong Xianling, Lin Rahai, Wang Wu, Huang Daopo, and so on. Although everyone had their own selfish motives, at this time, almost everyone became as simple and honest as the ancient people. It was not that their realms had been elevated. That was only a part of it. Rather, it was because they knew that only when Soaring Firmament Village was well could they be well. Whether for public or private reasons, these people were all working towards the same goal. They were united and united. As the saying went, if the people were united, Mount Tai would move. Although the human race was weak, they were the most likely to create miracles, coupled with the endless supply of resources from Fong Qingshan. Although Soaring Firmament Village had only been established for a few months, it was already on the verge of a breakthrough. First was the spiritual outlook of the people. In the past, most people had been reduced to walking corpses. Now, everyone was full of hope for life. Like Xianhuang City, Soaring Firmament Village was a place where everyone was a soldier. Everyone cultivated and was like a dragon. They ate the beast blood rice that Fong Qingshan transplanted from Daoxiang Village. They drank the medicine well water, swallowed the worldly spirit energy, absorbed the essence of the sun and moon, cultivated the arts, and killed the beasts of the foreign races. In just a few short months, other than Fong Qingshan and Wen Daoist, Soaring Firmament Village didn't have any capable experts. Now, even a 3-year-old child had cultivation. People like Fong Xianling and Lin Rahai had reached the peak of life aperture and were half a step away from life diagram. More importantly, Hongjun Tiandao had it. Tiandao, Hongjun, and Tiandao in the heavenly lake. The golden carp of Providence was no longer half dead. Instead, it was on the verge of transformation. Heaven and earth, but the path of the fate. Luck to there, and there the fate. And was the fate. On this day, Fong Qingshan gathered all the people of Soaring Firmament Village. He spread out the army and prepared to advance to the village. Fate was the path of the dynasty. Every time one advanced, there would be natural and man-made disasters. If they could not, they would be doomed. 10,000 years of hard work would go down the drain. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in one day. This was to make the people more dependent on Soaring Firmament Village. This time, Fong Qingshan didn't plan to do anything. Instead, he let them go and let them train. In the name of the heavenly Tao, today, Fong Qingshan, the leader of Soaring Firmament Village, reports to the heavens. Although Soaring Firmament Village has only been established for a short period of time, with the combined efforts of everyone, the luck of the village has reached its limit. The village cannot tolerate it anymore. I hereby beg the heavens to allow Soaring Firmament Village to advance to a celestial town. The heavens bless us. After everything was prepared, Fang Qingshan immediately began to advance to a celestial town. As soon as he said this, the heavens and earth sensed it and rippled. Rumble. It was the same as when Xin Huang's city advanced to a king city. Thousands of law wills gathered and formed a vertical eye, covering the entire Soaring Firmament Village. It seemed to be verifying whether the requirements had really been met. After a while, a dragon gate appeared. It was ancient, mysterious, and majestic. One could vaguely hear the roars of thousands of dragons. Roar! At the same time, Soaring Firmament Village's fate spirit, the golden carp, seemed to have sensed the dragon gate's aura and came out impatiently. The carp leaped over the dragon gate. Once it was crossed, it would be metamorphosis and evolution. The world would no longer be the same. Of course, the carp leaping over the dragon gate was like an army crossing a single plank bridge. It was not an easy task. Along with the heavenly eye, the dragon gate also appeared with boundless calamity energy. Dark clouds rolled, and a murderous aura soared into the sky. A deep malice rushed toward them. At the same time, on the ground, spirits and skeletons formed groups and attacked Towering Firmament Village. It's time to test everyone. For Soaring Firmament Village, for our homes, everyone kill. Wang Wu waved his arms and called out, forming all kinds of formations, such as the one-line snake formation, the two dragons formation, the three-talent heaven and earth formation, the four gates formation, the five tigers flock formation, the six universe square formation, the seven stars big dipper formation, the eight gates golden lock formation, and so on. It was not just the army. Anyone with strength fought in close combat or attacked from afar. They fought bravely and risked their lives. The Fate Spirit had been eager to try the Dragon Gate's summoning, but had hesitated because of the calamity energy. At this time, it seemed to be motivated by everyone's fighting spirit. It leaped out and went against the flow, marching toward the Dragon Gate. For a moment, the earth was shaking. Death roared. Murderous aura soared into the sky, and blood flowed like a river. At every moment, there were undead and skeletons killed by the army and the experts of Soaring Firmament Village. Of course, there were also people of Soaring Firmament Village falling at every moment. In this regard, no one compromised. The undead did not know what failure and death were. On the side of Soaring Firmament Village, it was easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but it was difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. After a few months of blissful life in Soaring Firmament Village, they were unwilling to go through those dark times again. If anyone wanted to destroy it, they had to fight with their lives. For a moment, both sides were in a killing frenzy. In this regard, Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin calmly watched everything in front of them. It was not that he was cold-blooded. It was just that if a jade was not polished, it would not be useful. If the people of Soaring Firmament Village did not experience blood, iron, and death, they would not be able to truly grow. This was the simplest and most basic thing. In the future, when they faced stronger alien races and even the Eternal Night Clan, the challenges they would face would be even more difficult. If they had already taken this step, how could they talk about the future? Although Fang Qingshan would be soft-hearted for a moment, he would not always be a babysitter. Moreover, he still needed them to support him. If he was a burden, what use was he? Chapter 598. Fang Qingshan was not worried about Wang Wu and the rest. With their cultivation, they would have no problem dealing with the calamity in the Celestial Advancement Town. The only problem was how much they would suffer. His real focus was on the golden carp in midair. The Soaring Firmament Village had developed very quickly. With the support of his abundant resources, the village had become a town in just a few months. However, success and failure were all due to Xiaohe. Because it had developed too quickly, it did not receive much training. The people were better off as they had already gone through hardships. The spirit of destiny, on the other hand, lacked some training. It was like a martial arts practitioner who had sufficient strength and was familiar with martial arts techniques. However, he was new and inexperienced, so he suffered a lot. Therefore, although the golden carp was powerful and rampaging, it only had 70% of its strength left when it faced the restraint of the tribulation aura. Fortunately, it was not sure if it was because of the willpower of the people of the soaring firmament village or because the dragon gate was more attractive to it than anything else. Although it was getting slower and slower, the pressure was increasing. However, the golden carp still maintained an indomitable spirit. It stared at the dragon gate and leaped over without a care for its own safety. 100 meters, 80 meters, 50 meters, it was getting closer and closer to the dragon gate, but it was getting harder and harder for the golden carp to move. Every movement was a test and torture. 20 meters, 19 meters, 18 meters, the golden carp was starting to lose strength. As expected, splash. There was a loud and clear splashing sound. Rumble. An even louder splashing sound was heard. When it was still far away from the dragon gate, the golden carp fell back. Although it was unwilling, it did not give up. It continued to jump again and again. However, there seemed to be a natural moat between them, preventing the golden carp from completing its transformation. It seems like you still need my help. Fang Qingshan sighed. In the end, it was still not enough. It had only been established for a short period of time. It had to rely on his own resources. However, it was his fault for missing the first opportunity to develop. He could only pull the sapling up through excessive haste. The power of destiny is everywhere. Golden carp, you are destined to make the great leap and transform into an ichthyosaur. Fang Qingshan's voice was loud and clear. Every word reverberated in the air. However, he had used the scales of fate to cast the great art of fate to strengthen the golden carp. With the injection of this new energy, the golden carp seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. It broke through its shackles and leaped up like a trapped dragon rising into the sky. In an instant, a golden parabola streaked across the sky and hit the dragon gate. Buzz! The moment the golden carp leaped over the dragon gate, the entire towering firmament village, and even this part of the world, shook. Boundless golden light shot out. It was so dazzling that it made people squint their eyes subconsciously. As the leader of High Sky Village, Fang Qingshan was connected to the spirit of providence. He sensed a mysterious power surging out of the dragon gate and enveloping the golden carp the moment it entered the dragon gate. Fang Qingshan felt that this power was not only able to refine his muscles and marrow, but most importantly, it was able to raise the level of his life and the source of his essence. Looking at the appearance of the golden carp, under the effect of this mysterious power, the gills on the fish's head had actually disappeared. Furthermore, 2 long whiskers had grown on the fish's head. The whiskers were golden. As its body gradually appeared, its body became longer and rounder. Naturally, the transformation could not be accomplished overnight. The dragon gate was not omnipotent. It could not really transform an ordinary scale into a true dragon in one leap. However, this time, the spirit of providence had already begun to break free from the ranks of fish and was advancing toward the attributes of a dragon. Fish dragon. Woo! Once the spirit of providence successfully transformed, the great calamity was considered over. Hence, the undead and skeletons outside High Sky Village began to retreat in an orderly manner. The bugles sounded, signaling the retreat of the troops. Everyone in High Sky Village could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Although they did not collapse from the battle until now, they were only holding on with their last breath. After all, these people did not have any cultivation base a few months ago, let alone any combat experience. At the same time, High Sky Village did not have the assistance of weapons such as arrow towers, magic towers, and cannons. In order to resist the undead and skeletons, they could only rely on human walls to stop them. Now that the enemy had retreated, many people relaxed and directly fainted. Leave? Do you think High Sky Village is a place where you can come and go as you please? These undead and puppet armies were vast and mighty. They were not afraid of death or pain. It was a huge challenge for the people of High Sky Village, but for Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin, they were just grasshoppers after autumn. Not to mention that the enemy was a resource in their eyes. It was not in their character to just take a beating and not fight back. Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin did not attack before because they wanted to train the people of High Sky Village and use war to integrate everyone into one. Now that the goal of training had been achieved, it was naturally time to settle the score. Buzz. Dong. First, the evening drum and morning bell rang. Ripples of sound waves spread out in all directions. These sound waves and soul attacks were simply the natural enemies of these undead and skeletons, and they naturally restrained them. As the drum and morning bell rang, the densely packed undead and skeletons that were retreating could not help but stop. The soul fires that flickered in their eyes could not help but flicker in the wind, as if they could be extinguished at any time. Then, the light of enlightenment on the lighthouse also began to shine brightly. Rays of light that were not blinding dispersed and fell on the bodies of the undead and skeletons. It was as if they were splashed with sulfuric acid, letting out sizzling sounds. Ayo! At this moment, a skeleton dragon roared at the sky, canceling out the sound of the evening drum and morning bell. Then it opened its mouth and inhaled, swallowing the light and fire emitted by the light of enlightenment into its stomach. Then the dragon swung its tail, curled up, and dragged all the undead and skeletons away. Naive. Seeing this scene, Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin could not help but sneer. Then Mosquito Dowrin took a step forward and instantly arrived at the top of the skeleton dragon's head. Without giving it any time to react, its mouth pierced in. In less than an hour, just like the time outside the bound of Yellow City, all the undead and skeletons that attacked Soaring Firmament Village had lost their lives here. All right, Wang Wu, lead the reserve team to clean up the battlefield and quickly send the wounded to the medical center. Rahai, organize the medical staff to do their best to rescue them. As for those who died in battle, properly collect their corpses. Xianling, calculate the battle merits and compensation. Yes, sir. Everyone responded in unison. Although there were heavy casualties this time, it was as if they had gone through a smelting process in the heaven and earth furnace, and everyone had received a round of tempering. Although they were sad, their willpower and sense of identity were gradually condensing. Fong Qingshan believed that after going through a few trials, Soaring Firmament Town would really grow, and they would not completely rely on themselves. Actually, it was for the sake of immortality. In an era where immortality was impossible and immortality was impossible, even great talents like the Qin Emperor and Han Wu could not avoid being buried in the ground. After 1,000 years, even their bones had turned into nothingness. The only thing that could be remembered by people was their name in the annals of history. The monument to the people's heroes undoubtedly fulfilled everyone's wish. Not only would they be remembered, but they would also be worshipped by everyone, and the destiny of the empire would be consecrated. There was also the spirit summoning banner. As long as his soul wasn't destroyed on the spot, he could start a second life. This was equivalent to having another life. He might even have the chance to become a god in the future. This kind of temptation to the people was even greater than the previous fame. Our bodies will be buried in the monument to the people's heroes, and we will be revered by tens of thousands of people. Our souls will return to the spirit summoning flag and start a new life. What do we have to be afraid of? Sky Tower Suppression, Ling Shao Town, Soaring Heaven Town. At that moment, all of the commoners and soldiers were filled with memories and fanaticism. They let out roars of rage that couldn't be stopped. They turned into shouts, shouts that came from their souls. Good, good, good. We can use the people's hearts. Seeing this, Fong Qingshan couldn't help but say good 3 times. My fellow soldiers, my fellow citizens, my fellow brothers and sisters. After the crowd shouts calmed down, Fong Qingshan spoke. His voice was neither fast nor slow, but it had a powerful, penetrating power. His voice covered the entire sky above sky tower suppression and reverberated wantonly. Whoosh! As soon as he opened his mouth, everyone's gaze naturally converged on him. In a few months, we went from being in a precarious situation to looking forward to the future. We went from having nothing to building our own home. We went from being powerless to being able to defeat the mutated races. We are creating a miracle, but it's still too slow. We missed the best time to develop, so we can only catch up. We can't relax. Next, we need to upgrade High Sky Town into High Sky City. We need to establish villages under the jurisdiction of High Sky Town within a radius of 10,000 miles and completely incorporate this territory into the territory of our human race. This is to prepare for the establishment of a nation in the future. Is everyone confident? Yes, yes, yes. Hearing Fang Qingshan's words, everyone shouted at the top of their lungs. Ha, good. Hearing this earth-shattering voice, Fang Qingshan couldn't help but laugh at the sky. I think it won't be long before the people of the Eternal Continent will be shocked by our Sky Tower town. Sky Tower, Sky Tower, Sky Tower. There were 4 ironies in life. Go through the same window together, carry a gun together, visit a prostitute together, and share the spoils together. Friendship through trials and tribulations. Only those who had fallen into hell would cherish the beauty of the human world. The people of Sky Tower Village had all experienced life and death and despair. Just now, they had fought with their backs to the wall. Their blood did not dry, and they fought to the death without retreating. The so-called cohesiveness, the so-called willpower, the so-called people's hearts immediately gathered. If it was before, they just wanted to enjoy the shade under a big tree. They only pinned their hopes on Fang Qingshan. But now, they were all branded with Sky Tower's brand. Today's home was hard-won. It was built with the blood of many soldiers and people. It belonged to each and every one of them. Anyone who wanted to destroy all of this was their enemy. They would destroy them at all costs. The effects of Sky Tower Village's advancement tribulation slowly dissipated. Compensation, rewards, and so on were carried out in an orderly manner. Previously, Fang Qingshan had said that Sky Tower Village would face expansion after advancing to Sky Tower Town. After the cleansing, everything within a radius of 10,000 miles would be included in the territory of Sky Tower Town. And to establish a subordinate village, a village creation order was not a problem. Although there were no platinum or gold village creation orders, ordinary black iron or silver village creation orders were not a problem. The only problem was the management of the village after it was established, which needed people. Regarding this, after Fang Qingshan, Fang Xianling, and the others discussed it, they decided to directly start from this war. The people with the most contribution points would accept their fate, which would also be a reward. Therefore, many people had just returned home, but before they could rest, they were summoned to the mayor's mansion again. Fang Qingshan gave each of them a village creation order and a basic set of resources to build a village. Then, he sent them to the wilderness to establish a subordinate village of Sky Tower Town. Of course, in the beginning, there would still be military guards. Although the foreign tribes within a radius of 10,000 miles had been cleansed, it did not mean that there was no danger. As for the people of the village, they could only recruit them themselves. Chapter 600. Ever since High Firmament Village had been promoted to High Firmament Town, its development had sped up. Everyone worked hard to build High Firmament City as fast as possible and as cheaply as possible. Although they had Fang Qingshan's resources, and although all the mutated ones within 10,000 miles had been cleansed, there was not much danger. However, it was not an easy task to develop and grow stronger. Most importantly, there was no one. High Firmament Town's current situation was similar to the Industrial Revolution. They could not recruit people. This was originally the territory of the mutated ones, and there was not a single human force within 10,000 miles. Although it was more beneficial to Fang Qingshan's recruitment and development. But now it seemed to have become a shackle. Because this was the territory of the mutated ones, many humans who landed here did not survive. The human race basically wouldn't come to this area either. Although the mutated ones within 10,000 miles have been cleansed, many people did not know. Even with the guidance of the enlightening lamp, there were still very few people coming to High Firmament Town. Fortunately, this was beginning to ease. If there were conditions, they had to go. If there were no conditions, they had to create conditions. Since there was a shortage of people, the village chiefs racked their brains and used all kinds of methods to recruit people for the village. Some even wanted to poach people from High Firmament Town. This kind of behavior not only failed, but other than a small number of people who could live in the capital who would want to go to a remote place. At the same time, this kind of behavior was attacked by Fong Xianling. These people saw that this was not a solution, so they began to intercept people. For the refugees that came every day, the villages almost started a fight. In the end, there was no other way. Fong Xianling suggested to Fong Qingshan that they could not wait for a pie to fall from the sky. They could not wait for other people to join them. They could go out and spread High Firmament Town's reputation while recruiting refugees. After all, the wilderness was still very dangerous. Many refugees died before they reached High Firmament Town, and some are still trapped in the wilderness, unable to advance or retreat. To this, Fong Qingshan naturally followed the advice. He had Wang Wu send out all the troops except for the necessary defensive forces. This way, although it still could not keep up with High Firmament Town's development speed, it was slightly alleviated. In this regard, Fong Qingshan was also very helpless. He knew that all of this was because Soaring Heaven Town had yet to gain a reputation. He finally understood why so many people hated Yi Tianxing for being the first to advance to the royal city and establishing a nation. He was walking his own path, but he was leaving others with no path to walk. Looks like the market will open soon. Fong Qingshan muttered to himself. His original plan was to wait until Soaring Sky Town was promoted to a city, and when it was not far from being promoted to a royal city, he would expand his reputation through the ruins market. But now it seemed that he needed to bring it forward. Yu. On this day, a strange cry suddenly came from the sky above Soaring Sky Town. At first, the sound was as soft as a mosquito, but a moment later, it was like thunder. Bird! What a big bird! Everyone looked in the direction of the voice, but all they saw was dark clouds covering the sky. It was a huge bird with a wingspan of 4 to 5 miles. Its beak was constantly making swishing sounds. Although the bird was huge, it didn't give off a violent feeling like a ferocious beast. On the contrary, it was more like a dove of peace. At first glance, one couldn't help but feel a sense of closeness. Alert! Even so, it was better to be safe than sorry. The garrison general of Soaring Sky Town still sounded the alarm bell. Wanderer bird. It's a traveling merchant. The others might not recognize it, but Fong Qingshan recognized it at first glance. The roaming bird was an extremely special race in this world. Ever since it was born, it had always been traveling. It liked to experience different sceneries and different things. As it traveled through the world, it contained a unique, innate divine ability that could make most creatures feel close to it. They wouldn't feel any hostility towards it, unless it was a forbidden area. The roaming bird could travel unimpeded. It was a messenger of peace. It brought the gospel from afar. With wanderer birds as the foundation, a unique profession was born, traveling merchant. With the help of wanderer birds, they traveled everywhere and traded in all directions. This was a miniature version of the ruins market. Seeing this, Fong Qingshan's eyes lit up. Those who could become traveling merchants were not simple people. Although they couldn't compare to the master of the timeless ark who established the ruins market, they were still a group of people with extraordinary abilities. Although they might not be the strongest in the world, at least they were not people that anyone could target. After all, traveling merchants were merchants who traveled the world. The world was so big, and natural disasters and man-made disasters had never stopped, especially when traveling merchants had many treasures. Without strength, how could they guard their treasures? After all, an innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. Without strength, it was like a 3-year-old walking on the street with a gold wheel. Putting that aside for now, there was a saying that traveling merchants don't have treasures. Those who could become traveling merchants would more or less have some rare treasures in their hands. Therefore, when Fong Qingshan saw the traveling merchants, his eyes lit up. Whether it was to develop soaring Sky Town, or the timeless arc, or to improve his own strength, all kinds of natural treasures, and pills were indispensable. If he could get a few from the traveling merchants and integrate them into soaring Sky Town, or the timeless arc to improve their quality and foundation, or treasures that could improve his own cultivation, it would save Fong Qingshan a lot of time. All right, everyone disperse. This is a traveling merchant, don't worry. Fong Qingshan's voice rang out, dismissing the alarm. Whoosh! At the same time, the traveling bird slowly landed in an empty space outside of soaring Sky Town. He saw that the bird was carrying an extraordinary pavilion on its back. I am a stranger in a foreign land, and the wanderer's hometown is everywhere. Fellow villagers and elders, a traveler from afar has taken the liberty to come and disturb us. Please forgive us and forgive us. The moment the traveling bird landed, the pavilion opened, and a rotund figure squeezed out. He was wearing a bright red robe, and his face was like the moon in mid-autumn. He smiled at everyone he met, and when he smiled, his eyes narrowed into a line. However, the light that flashed from time to time made people not dare to underestimate him. He was a living Maitreya. At this moment, the traveling merchant was muttering to himself. He had been here before, but because it was a foreign tribe, he did not land and left directly. After all, he was a human, and foreign tribes were not friendly to humans. Not to mention trading, it was already good enough that they did not rob him. Although traveling merchants were neutral, just like music had no borders, musicians had borders. Traveling merchants were also human, so they basically refused to trade with foreign tribes. He did not expect that when he passed by this time, this place would become human territory. There was no trace of foreign tribes within a 10,000-mile radius. How could he not be surprised? Chapter 601. I rely on my parents at home and my friends when I go out. I am Tong Wuju, a traveling merchant. It's my first time here, so I hope everyone will support me. Fatty Tong Wuju looked around and cupped his hands at Fong Qingshan and the others with a smile. I've recently acquired a new batch of goods. Don't miss it if you're passing by. If you're interested, Daoists can come take a look. The price is fair and we're honest. It's good to have friends from afar, not to mention traveling merchants like the Daoist. It's an honor to have you come to Soaring Sky Town. Fong Qingshan smiled. Not at all, not at all. I'm just a small merchant. I hope the mayor will support me in my work. After a pause, Tong Wuju continued, full of emotion. The last time I passed through this place, the area within a radius of 10,000 miles was filled with the alien races. The human race was living in an abyss of suffering. I didn't expect that when I passed through this place again, this place would have undergone earth-shattering changes. Not only have the alien races been wiped out, but the human race's living standards and appearance have also undergone a complete transformation. Fellow Daoist, your abilities truly amaze me. Tong Wuju's words were hard to discern. However, he couldn't hide his astonishment at all. Disregarding everything else, Soaring Sky Town had only recently developed. However, within a radius of 10,000 miles, there was not a single decent non-human tribe. Just this fact alone was enough to make people have a whole new level of respect for them. Needless to say, when he was facing Fong Qingshan, Tong Wuba felt a sense of oppression and danger. As mentioned earlier, anyone who could become a traveling merchant was not a simple character. At the very least, their cultivation was among the ranks of experts. But such a person felt danger when facing Fong Qingshan. Combined with the situation around Soaring Sky Town, Tong Wuju still had no idea what was going on. With an expert like this and the development of Soaring Sky Town, Tong Wuju had high hopes for Fong Qingshan and Soaring Sky Town. This might very well be the next great Yi dynasty, the next Yi Tianqing. Although traveling merchants had no fixed residence and wandered the world, they had a special channel of communication with each other. As a traveling merchant, he traveled all over the world. He came here just to do business and even to purchase goods. Not participating in any battles or grudges was one of the basic principles of traveling merchants. Anyone who disobeyed would automatically lose their identity as a traveling merchant. The distant birds would not carry a traveling merchant who violated the rules. Tong Wugu might not be able to participate in other miscellaneous matters, but he could invest in Fangqing Shan and Ling Shao Town. If he were to come up with something really good, he might be able to reap great returns in the future. Since Taoist Tong said that he got a new batch of goods, I naturally have to take a good look. After some small talk, Fang Qingshan and Tong Wudu got down to business. I won't disappoint the Taoist. Please. Tong Wugu turned to the side and made an inviting gesture. Fang Qingshan laughed lightly and took a step forward. In an instant, a figure materialized in front of the door of the pavilion. When Tong Wuba saw this, his body tensed up and his eyes narrowed. He had expected Fang Qingshan to be very powerful. But seeing is better than hearing 100 times, and seeing is better than hearing about it. Disregarding everything else, Tong Wuba knew that he would not be able to avoid the speed alone. However, he was someone who had seen the world. He quickly composed himself and led Fang Qingshan into the pavilion. Although it was only a pavilion, there was another world inside. Although it was not on the scale of a minor thousand realm, it had the ability to store a mountain in a mustard seed. As soon as they entered the first floor, they saw shelves after shelves filled with all kinds of treasures. It was so dazzling that one's eyes couldn't take it all in. It was so dazzling that one even wanted to rob them. It was like a supermarket. Regardless of whether it was pills, medicines, spiritual herbs, spiritual fruits, rare treasures, all kinds of treasures of heaven and earth, magical powers, battle skills, cultivation methods, and all kinds of strange things, this place had everything that one could think of. But Fang Qingshan only took a few glances and shook his head. These things were not bad, but they were far from what he had expected. Although Fang Qingshan lacked resources, ordinary treasures of heaven and earth were not enough to catch his eye. Taoists, don't worry. These are just ordinary goods. I put away the real good stuff. As a traveling merchant, observing people's body language was their instinct. Tong Wuba looked at Fang Qingshan's expression and knew what was going on. Although these things are ordinary to Taoists, they might be useful for the establishment of a dynasty. Taoist, you should choose. If you don't like them, we can talk about other treasures. Tong Wuba said eloquently. As a traveling merchant, he naturally had to recommend his goods to customers, regardless of whether they were precious or ordinary. When Fang Qingshan heard this, he thought about it and realized that it was true. Even if he couldn't use it, it was useful for the development of a dynasty and could be used to reward others. Even if others couldn't use it, they could give it to Mosquito Dowrin to recycle. He didn't reject anyone anyway. Therefore, Fang Qingshan began to sweep up the goods. Cultivation methods, techniques, combat skills, cultivation arts, and so on. As long as it wasn't in the sutra depository, he would take it all. As for finished elixirs and weapons, Fang Qingshan didn't buy them, because there weren't any low-level items here, and there weren't many high-level items. Of course, the high-level and low-level were relative to the people of High Firmament Town, not Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin. However, in terms of materials, be it rare treasures of heaven and earth or ordinary materials, Fang Qingshan swept all of them. Even now, High Firmament Town didn't have specialized elixir refiners or blacksmiths. But in the Timeless Ark, there were specialized elixir refiners and blacksmiths. Then there were all kinds of rare treasures and buildings. Fang Qingshan also saw them and didn't let them go. For a moment, the originally dazzling shelves instantly became empty, as if they had been robbed. Fatty Tong, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but feel happy and worried. Of course, there was no need to talk about happiness. Just Fang Qingshan, who swept up goods, was liked by all the merchants. Naturally, they were worried about whether Fang Qingshan could afford the price. One had to know that Fang Qingshan was simply trying to catch him in one fell swoop. Moreover, these were just ordinary goods. The truly precious ones hadn't been taken out yet. For a moment, Fatty Tong couldn't help but feel pain and happiness. Regarding this, Fong Qingshan originally didn't know, but Fatty Tong's gaze was too obvious. It was impossible for Fong Qingshan to ignore it, even if he wanted to. At first, he didn't know what was going on. But after thinking about it and looking at Fatty Tong's hesitant expression, he understood and couldn't help but smile. Taoist Tong, what do you use to trade here? Without waiting for him to speak, he asked first. Chapter 602. I'm sure Taoist knows that gold, silver, and jewelry can't be used as a trading currency. These things have no value at all now. The eternal continent is a fusion of worlds, and there is no unified currency system. Generally speaking, we trade through barter. Of course, although there are some differences in the value of the goods, it is absolutely guaranteed to be fair and just. So, Fong Taoist, you don't have to worry. Hearing Fong Qingshan take the initiative to talk about trading, Fatty Tong's heart couldn't help but calm down. The smile on his face deepened, and he hurriedly explained. His narrowed eyes flashed with a hint of shrewdness from time to time. Although Tong Wuju's words weren't false, there were some differences in the value of the goods, which was somewhat meaningful. As he said, the eternal continent didn't have a unified currency system in the fusion of worlds. Although it was guaranteed to be fair and just, there were still loopholes that could be exploited. Oranges in Huainan were called tangerines, and in Huaibei, they were called oranges. Of course, the price of tangerines sold in the north and south was different. It was just like the exchange rate in modern society. Traveling merchants could use this to earn the price difference. Fong Qingshan was well aware of this, but he didn't point it out. This was also a kind of unspoken benefit for traveling merchants. What do you think of this currency, Taoist? Fong Qingshan's eyes flashed. Ordinary people really couldn't do anything about the behavior of traveling merchants to earn the price difference. Even if they knew that the price was lower than the normal level, they could only pinch their noses and accept it. Fortunately, traveling merchants wouldn't go too far. But this kind of behavior didn't work for Fong Qingshan. This wasn't because he clearly knew the true value of each item. He knew what the psychological bottom line of traveling merchants was, so he could bargain with Fatty Tong and fight for the greatest benefit. It was because he didn't intend to barter at all. On one hand, he was crazy about buying goods before, and there were even more precious things to be traded later. If he used a method of barter, although he would get a lot of good things, he would inevitably have to take out a lot of good things. This was not something he was willing to do. It was not that Fong Qingshan was a Pishio that only knew how to swallow and not spit. It was because he couldn't bear to part with precious items. As for ordinary items, he didn't have many. Mosquito Dowrin, Five Element Sect, and even Soaring Heaven Town had already used up most of them. That was why he decided to choose ordinary treasures after listening to Tong Wuji. Not to mention the fact that he didn't have that many ordinary treasures to trade with. Even if he did, using one batch of ordinary treasures to trade with another batch of ordinary treasures would still allow others to profit from the price difference. Wasn't this an unnecessary move and a huge loss? In the beginning, Yi Tianxing suffered a loss because of this. Using orbs of will to trade wasn't because the price was unequal, but because the orbs of will weren't utilized to their fullest potential. It was a great waste. Hence, the second time a traveling merchant came, Yi Tianxing used the eternal coin, the bound of Yellow City's standard currency, to trade. This currency was similar to the one created by the master of the Timeless Arkansas. It contained pure origin chi of heaven and earth without any impurities. It could be directly absorbed, and like the orbs of will and providence, it could produce a unique amplification effect. Hence, Fong Qingshan never thought of using the barter method to trade. He could also use the currency to trade. Although he didn't create a set of currency specifically for Soaring Heaven City, it was the same as sharing a set with the Permethos ship. This currency, Tong Wuji took a shiny golden copper coin from Fong Qingshan's hand. His eyes were filled with amazement. Money can move gods. What a good copper coin. After weighing it in his hand, Tong Wuji understood the magical use of this copper coin. Although this item couldn't be used for cultivation directly, it had many magical uses. It truly displayed the principle that money could move gods to the extreme. One copper coin was fine. Once there was a certain amount, it could even be used to drop all kinds of precious treasures like the treasurefall coin. This was only one of its magical uses. It could also be used to increase cultivation speed, improve comprehension, or even seek benefits and avoid disadvantages by borrowing another 500 years from the heavens. This is a new type of currency that isn't any weaker than Xianhuang City's eternal coin. Tong Wuji toyed with the copper coin in his hand fondly. After all, the treasurefall coin was a coin nurtured by heaven and earth. Moreover, it was a copper coin he had created. It wasn't impossible for it to surpass the currency refined by the heavens. Most of the time, merchants were described as reeking of money, although it was derogatory. It also illustrated the relationship between merchants and money. As traveling merchants, they were used to bartering. However, if there was a currency like the eternal coin or ethereal coin, they would naturally be more interested. I thought Xianhuang City's eternal coin was already unique in the world. I didn't expect the Taoist to also be able to forge a treasure like the ethereal coin. He really is capable of doing what others can't. Tong Wuji sighed. I was just lucky. Fang Qingshan chuckled. I wonder if the Taoist has enough ethereal coins. I wonder if the quantity is enough. I want to obtain this currency on a large scale. Moreover, all the goods in my shop can be traded with ethereal coins. Tong Wuji couldn't help but say seriously. You don't have to worry about that, Taoist. Fang Qingshan couldn't help but smile. The ethereal coin isn't just the currency of numinous firmament town. It's also the currency of the Five Elements ruins. Five Elements ruins? Tong Wuji couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. Although he had never heard of this place before, judging from what Fang Qingshan said, it seemed to be no small matter. That's right. The so-called ruins are a trading market. It's an upgraded version of traveling merchants. Fang Qingshan explained unhurriedly. However, unlike ordinary trading markets, the Five Elements ruins is a place that can connect to the entire eternal continent and even the myriad worlds. There are also many rare treasures inside that are enough to make one forget about returning home. Oh, there's a place like that? Why haven't I heard of it before? Tong Wuju's interest was immediately piqued. Then he asked with some doubt. Naturally, the Taoist wouldn't have heard of it because the Five Elements ruins has never been opened before. Fang Qingshan smiled. But it will open soon. When the time comes, the Taoist will be able to enter with this invitation token. With that, Fang Qingshan flipped his hand and took out a token. It wasn't made of gold, copper, wood, or jade. He didn't know what material it was made of, but one side was engraved with the Five Elements, glistening with a myriad of colors. The other side was engraved with the words Permitha, crossing the sea of bitterness to reach the other shore. Oh, in that case, I'll go in and take a good look to see how this ruins is worthy of the Taoist praise. A strange look flashed across Tong Wuji's eyes as he put the token into his pouch. Chapter 603. All right, from now on, we'll use ethereal coins for our transactions. I hope Taoist has no objections. Fang Qingshan asked. No problem. Tong Wuji nodded. He had no objections. All right then. Taoist, are you going to calculate the value of these treasures first? Or are you going to take out more precious treasures for me to choose from and settle the payment together? Fang Qingshan asked. Of course, we'll settle the payment together after we've made our selections. Tong Wuju said without hesitation. Please wait a moment, Taoist. Tong Wuju turned around and went up the pavilion. A moment later, he came back down with a sumaru pouch. Please take a look, Taoist. Tong Wuju took out the first treasure as he spoke. It seemed to be a technological product. It looked like a white box that emitted sci-fi colors. It shone with a dreamy metallic luster. It looked like a unique whole. There were no gaps at all. It was a natural product. It would be a waste if this item fell into the hands of an ordinary person. However, it's priceless in the hands of a leader of a force like Taoist. Tong Wuju said with a smile. Oh, what treasure is this? Fang Qingshan looked at it for a while, but still could not recognize it. He was not too concerned about that. There were many rare treasures in the merging of realms. There were only things that one could not imagine, but there was nothing that one could not see. He did not bother to guess and asked directly. Universal printer. Tong Wuzhu casually spat out 5 words. Fong Qingshan shuddered when he heard that. Before Yi Tianqing used it in bound Yellow City, nobody knew what it was used for. It was treated as an ordinary treasure. However, as Yi Tianqing and the great Yi dynasty rose, their weapons and equipment kept coming. Although the quality was not the best, it was above average. More importantly, they were almost made from the same mold. This kind of situation naturally fell into the eyes of many observant people. Unfortunately, almost nobody knew the specifics, apart from the traveling merchant who bought the printer from Yi Tianqing. Naturally, he was filled with regret over this. Although the universal printer wasn't much for high-end combat power, it was extremely useful for those below the middle level. The traveling merchants didn't leak the secret to the others, but they communicated it among themselves. Unfortunately, he did not know if it was because of Hong Jun Tiandao's restrictions, but there were very few of them. Tong Wuji was lucky enough to obtain this item in a village. He kept it in his collection. Just as he had said, if it fell into the hands of someone who didn't understand the market, it wouldn't be able to show its value. However, if it fell into the hands of someone who was determined, it would be priceless. Looking at Fong Qingshan's appearance, he was obviously a person who knew what was good and what was bad. Although he didn't know how he knew, he didn't have to say it out loud. He looked at Fong Qingshan calmly. Name your price. Fong Qingshan couldn't help but shake his head. Although he knew that he would inevitably be extorted, there was nothing he could do about it. As expected, Tong Wuji named a sky-high price. It was more than 1,000 times more than Yi Tianqing's deal. Fong Qingshan could not help but grit his teeth, but he could only accept it. Calm down, Taoist. Fatty has a lot of good stuff here. Don't get too excited, don't get too excited. Fatty Tong comforted Fong Qingshan while laughing so hard that his eyes could not be seen. In order to calm Fong Qingshan's anger and divert his attention, Fatty Tong took out the second treasure at lightning speed. The item was the size of a square sleeve. It was neither gold nor jade, and it was unknown what material it was made of. However, it was like a signal tower, constantly emitting a kind of strange fluctuation. The moment Fong Qingshan saw the item, he felt like heaven's net was wide, but nothing could escape. Seeing that Fong Qingshan's attention was diverted, Fatty Tong could not help but sigh in relief. He then explained to Fong Qingshan proudly, "Don't underestimate this item because it doesn't have any offensive or defensive abilities, but it can allow you to observe the minutest details. This item is called the Heavenly Net, which means heaven's net is wide, but nothing can escape. If it's integrated into the Heavenly Lake of Providence, it can cover all places covered by Providence and help you monitor everything. If you can unify the world in the future, perhaps this item can really become the real Heavenly Net." When Fong Qingshan heard that, he instantly thought of the celestial crystal ball in the bound of Yellow City. However, compared to him, the Heavenly Net had a single function. Nonetheless, if it could be combined with something else and nurture a celestial crystal ball, it might really transform into the intelligence system of the entire soaring sky town. However, this time, Fong Qingshan did not show any strange expression. Tong Wuji, who was secretly observing him, could not help but be dumbfounded. Looking at Fong Qingshan's expressionless eyes, Fatty Tong could not help but smile embarrassedly and take out the third treasure. It was a palace called Yipang Palace. It was one of the 4 major projects of Qin Shi Huang, along with the Great Wall, Emperor Qin's mausoleum, and Qin Ji Dao. Legend had it that it was later burned down by Xiang Yu. It covered more than 300 miles, isolating the sun from the sky. 2 rivers melted and flowed into the palace walls. Every 5 steps of floor, every 10 steps of pavilion. Winding corridors, high eaves, all hugging the terrain, fighting and scheming. Coils, beehives, whirlpools, tens of millions of people falling. Long bridges, crouching waves. How can there be dragons without clouds? restoring the way to the sky. How can there be no rainbow? High and low in the dark. How can there be no east and west? On the singing platform, warm sounds of spring are heard. On the dance hall, cold sleeves, the wind and rain are sad. Within a day, between the palaces, the weather is not uniform. This was the true portrayal of a Pang palace. Now, it was clearly displayed in front of Fong Qingshan. Although it was a smaller version, under the effect of the divine power of heaven and earth, it was more perfect and mystical than the Apang Palace built by the first emperor. This item is not bad. It can be used as the imperial garden of the royal city in the future. Fong Qingshan could not help but nod. Then, Fatty Tong took out several rare treasures one after another. There was the East Arrival Pavilion, a fragment of the World Tree, a Zodiac statue, a treasure mountain, and even the corpse of a chaos demon god. The so-called East Arrival Pavilion was named after the purple chi from the east. This pavilion could gather the purple chi of the rising sun. There was no need to talk about the effects of the purple chi. All cultivators were used to breathing in and out the purple chi of the rising sun at sunrise every day. However, they could only guide a single strand of purple chi. It was completely incomparable to the East Arrival Pavilion. There was no need to talk about the fragment of the World Tree. Although this piece was not big, its quality was still above the quality of the Desolation World Tree and the Everlasting World Tree. The original body of this piece of World Tree probably had a cultivation base that was half a step into the origin realm. If it was devoured by Fong Qingshan's World Tree, not to mention the World Tree itself, even the innate small world and Fong Qingshan would benefit greatly. Chapter 604. There were only two zodiac statues. One was an iron bull, and the other was a real dragon. These were existences that could nurture innate spiritual meridians. Naturally, one would not let them go if they came across them. As for the treasure mountain, it was a treasure that was a perfect combination of all kinds of formations and restrictions. For those who devoted themselves to the cultivation of formations, this item was a real paradise. Once he reached the top of the treasure mountain, his realm of formations and runes would definitely skyrocket. This was equivalent to an inheritance of formations and runes. Yu. After the transaction, Fong Qingshan walked out of the attic. Not long after, Fatty Tong rode on the wanderer bird, flapped its wings, and soared into the sky, heading to the next place. Wanderer, wanderer, wanderer. That was to drift around forever. He would not stay in any place for too long. Even if he stayed, he would not stay for more than a day or two. What a good wanderer. Sure enough, there's no such thing as a wanderer without treasures. All merchants are crafty. Looking at Fatty Tong's departing figure, Fong Qingshan could not help but mutter to himself. At this moment, Fong Qingshan was both happy and pained. Naturally, he was happy because of the harvest. Putting aside the ordinary goods, Fong Qingshan almost did not let go of any of the trump cards that Fatty Tong took out. Putting aside the others, the corpse of the Chaos Demon God alone was enough to drive people crazy. Chaos Demon Gods, even the weakest ones, were basically above the Zenith Heaven realm. Some were even stronger than the Mixed Origin realm. Hongjun Tiandao was advancing towards the Eternal realm. Of course, the one in Fatty Tong's hand naturally couldn't be that high-end. Otherwise, this kind of thing couldn't be taken out to trade. Even if it was taken out to trade, Fong Qingshan wouldn't be able to afford the price. Fortunately, although this one was not a high-end one, it was not at the bottom either. The original owner of this Chaos Demon God should have just entered the Sage-to-Be realm. It was unknown what kind of dangerous situation he encountered that caused his soul to perish directly. There was not a single wound on his body. It was unknown whether it had healed automatically or not. In order to obtain this corpse, Fong Qingshan spent a lot of effort. Putting aside the ethereal coin, he had also taken out a few other precious items, such as the spirit coffin flame he had obtained from Burning Lamp, the Khanate spirit treasure coffin nails, and so on. But compared to the Chaos Demon God's corpse, everything was worth it. Compared to the Khanate gods, the chaos fiend celestials were even more blessed by the heavens. They were nurtured by the heavens and the earth, and their entire bodies were filled with Tao runes. If Fang Qingshan could comprehend the chaos demon god's body, not only would he be able to learn the laws he was born with, but it would also be greatly beneficial to his Tao of the body. Moreover, fusing the demon god's body with the timeless arc would also allow the timeless arc to take a big step forward. Even so, Fang Qingshan's heart ached so much that he wanted to chop off his hands. Ordinary treasures could be traded for with ethereal coins, but Yang Qi didn't care. The rarer something was, the greater its value. Although ethereal coins were good, he had more than enough to trade for ordinary treasures. Fang Qingshan didn't know whether it was because he had enough ethereal coins or because he was certain that Fang Qingshan had seen them before, so he didn't want to miss out on them. Some of them were using ethereal coins, while others insisted on bartering. This was the reason why Fang Qingshan felt his heart ache when he said that Fatty Tong was a cunning businessman. It wasn't just the treasures traded through bartering. Even if it was ethereal coins, if it wasn't for the fact that Fang Qingshan had fused with the Treasurefall coin, which had great money-making abilities, he would have run out long ago. That was not to mention the circulation of ethereal coins when the bazaar opened in the future. Fortunately, the true value of ethereal coins could only be realized when they were circulated. Although they were precious in his hands, they couldn't be fully realized. Moreover, once they were destroyed and sacrificed, they could return to the money tree and be used to increase the Tao of money's luck. Although no matter what, Fang Qingshan wouldn't lose out. Seeing a mountain of money being traded away still made Fang Qingshan feel a little uncomfortable. It seems that the bazaar really has to be put on the agenda. Fang Qingshan sighed. Shaking his head, Fang Qingshan calmed his mind and began to deal with the resources in his hands. First, he threw Iron Bull and True Dragon into the central square of Soaring Sky Town, where they were next to the Peacock Spring and the Medicine King's Well. Whoosh! As soon as it landed, it swelled with the wind, and its body rapidly grew to a height of more than 10 meters. They landed on the ground and took root. They grew on the ground. Buzz! Following that, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the whole town began to boil, and the spiritual chi within 100 miles swarmed over. Although they hadn't successfully formed innate spirit meridians, these two statues alone could increase the cultivation speed of the whole town by 30%. Then, Fang Qingshan directly fused the heavenly net into the heavenly lake of providence. For a moment, invisible waves that were hard to see with the naked eye spread out from the heavenly lake of providence and the heavenly net itself. As long as Soaring Sky Town was under the rule of Soaring Sky Town, and as long as the Providence could reach, except for private spaces or special places, everything would be covered by the heavenly net. For a moment, everyone and all living creatures felt their hearts tighten, as if there was a pair of eyes staring at them. This was only the heavenly net, and it hadn't been fused with other treasures. Once it was fused with other treasures, its monitoring ability would be omnidirectional and all-weather. Of course, this feeling only lasted for a moment, and the heavenly net soon became invisible. Unless there was a special situation, or if Fang Qingshan personally activated it, it wouldn't appear at all. As for the World Tree's fragment, Fang Qingshan directly threw it into the innate small world. Then, the World Tree instantly dragged it to its nest and took root there. However, perhaps because its quality was too high, it would still take some time to digest it even though it had the same root. As for how long it would take, Fang Qingshan couldn't calculate it. The Restriction Treasure Mountain was integrated into the Timeless Arc by Fang Qingshan, and it became another feature of the ruined city. Ipang Palace was also integrated into the mayor's mansion by Fang Qingshan. Unfortunately, not to mention the area it occupied after the mutation, even the original 300 square kilometers was only a small part of it. Of course, the reason for this was that Soaring Sky Town's grade was too low. If it wanted to fully manifest and turn illusions into reality, it would probably be impossible even if it advanced to the royal city. Yi Tianqing's old summer palace was not fully manifested even after being integrated into the palace tree. As for the chaos demon god's body, Fang Qingshan didn't plan to use it before he completely understood it. At this moment, like the world tree's fragment, it was thrown into the innate small world by Fang Qingshan. However, the world tree's clone was handling the world tree's fragment, while Fang Qingshan used the One Qi Sanqing to summon another clone to comprehend the mysteries of the chaos demon god. He wanted to comprehend it as soon as possible and then integrate it into the timeless Arkansas. Chapter 605. As for the other treasures, Fang Qingshan immediately put them to use, either integrating them in a high firmament town or the timeless Arkansas. As for hoarding them, it was a complete waste. As for the ordinary treasures, Fang Qingshan summoned Fang, Xianling, and the others and handed them over to Wan Sanqian so that they could discuss how to make use of them to speed up the development of High Firmament Town. Wan Sanqian was different from Huang Daopo. He was not discovered during the population census, but was a refugee who came to High Firmament Town after it had developed. After being discovered by Fang Qingshan, he was promoted to be in charge of managing the town's property. He was originally an important character in the television series No. 1 Under the Heavens. He was extremely wealthy, comparable to Shirchong. At the same time, he was generous and generous. There were simply too many people in the world who were indebted to him. He often appeared and disappeared without a trace. He founded the No. 1 Under the Heavens Manor and recruited all kinds of people from all over the world. Although Wan Sanqian, Fang Xianling, and the others were taken aback by the number of resources Fang Qingshan had called out, none of them were too surprised. After all, the resources that Qingshan had obtained outside the Xianhuang city and the resources that he had plundered from the foreign tribes within a radius of 10,000 miles were more than what he had now, even though he had only taken out a portion of them. However, spending money was like running water, especially with High Firmament Town's rapid development. It was like a great construction period, changing day by day. However, they were still a little anxious about running out of resources. After all, High Firmament Town had not yet formed a complete virtuous system. Although Wan Sanqian was an expert in making money, it was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. Therefore, with this injection of resources, the pressure on them could not help but be relieved. Wan Sanqian, Fang Xianling, and the others could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. The hall of the mayor's mansion was now filled with talents. Apart from Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, Wang Wu, and the other 18 people at the beginning. Then there was Huang Daopo, Wan Sanqian, Zheng He, Zhang Run, and the others. Although Huang Daopo was only a woman, she was not to be underestimated in a place like the Eternal Continent. Even in the original history, she was not to be underestimated. Women were not inferior to men. Madame Huang, also known as Madame Huang or Madame Huang, was a famous cotton weaver and technical reformer in the late Song and early Yuan dynasties. During the Qing dynasty, he was even revered as the ancestor of the cloth industry. She was simply the weaver maiden of the human world. Especially the fabric that had been woven by her, it naturally possessed a kind of magical power. It was simply one of the specialties of Soaring Skytown. There was no need to talk about Wan Sanqian. He was based on Shun Wan San, the richest man in the world during the Ming dynasty. Putting everything else aside, just the ability to make money alone was not unrivaled. However, if one were to look at history, they would be one of the few experts. When Zheng He was mentioned, he couldn't help but think of the story of his voyage to the West. Although he was also a eunuch, most people only remembered his achievements in sailing. Very few people compared him to Chao Zhengquan, Zhao Gao, and Li Fugua. To be honest, if one didn't know his background, one wouldn't be able to tell from his appearance that there was anything strange about him. Instead, he looked like a high-spirited warrior. When he joined Soaring Sky Town, he didn't directly join Yi Tianqing's imperial residence to become the chief steward, like Chao Zhengquan. Instead, he was like an ordinary person with lofty ideals, learning both literature and martial arts, and selling them to the imperial family. As for Zhang Ren, Many people might not be familiar with his name, but many people would come to a sudden realization when they mentioned his senior and junior brothers. He was the disciple of Tong Yuan, the spear prodigy of the Three Kingdoms. His senior brother was the spear king Zhang Xiu of the northern land. With the help of the poison warrior Jiasu's intelligence, he killed Cao Cao's eldest son and Dian Wei, who was known as the ancient evildoer. He almost caused Cao to fail miserably. As for his junior brother, he was even more famous. His surname was Zhao, and his given name was Zizalong. He was from Changshan and was one of the 5 tiger generals of the Shu Kingdom of the Three Kingdoms. He was known as the White Horse Silver Spear Zhao Zilong. He had entered and left the Changban slope 7 times. He was a typical idol with strength. However, Zhang Ren wasn't bad himself. He was courageous and had a strong will. It was normal for him to be alone. As Tong Yuan's disciple, Zhao Yun, and Zhang Xiu's senior and junior brothers, how could they not be skilled in martial arts? As for Jijia, when Liu Bei entered Yi Province, he originally wanted to recruit him, but Zhang Ren flatly rejected him. Zhang Ren said that a loyal subject wouldn't serve 2 masters, which was what Fang Qingshan valued the most. To those in power, although ability was important, loyalty was even more important. Besides, with Zhang Ren's addition, Soaring Sky Town finally had a real general to lead the army. Although Wang Wu was good, he didn't know much about marching and fighting a war. Everyone came to the main hall and chatted with each other. Usually, they were busy with their own matters and worked like a top. This was a good opportunity to rest, so they didn't care much about the resources that Fang Qingshan gave to Wan San. However, the universal printer that Fang Qingshan took out immediately attracted their attention. After hearing Fang Qingshan's explanation, they immediately understood that this thing was a national treasure. As long as there were samples and resources, it could be produced continuously. It wasn't just an assembly line. The quality was guaranteed, and more importantly, efficiency. Apart from being limited by resources, it wouldn't be affected by other people, time, or location. With this thing, the combat power of the army could at least double. During war, there was no need to worry about the supply of weapons, and there would be more opportunities to practice during normal times. In addition, this universal printer could print more than just weapons. Since it was called the universal printer, it didn't mean that it could print everything, but at least it could print many things. Of course, samples were also a problem. He needed a group of talents like the Mo family, Liu Ban, Ma Jun, and Huang Yue. Mayor, I think we can start the establishment of the government. They discussed the use of the universal printer and talked about various aspects of Soaring Sky Town. Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, and the others looked at each other and made a solemn suggestion to Fang Qingshan. There were quite a lot of people in Lingxiao Town to begin with, and with the constant flow of refugees over this period of time, more and more refugees arrived. Although it did not seem chaotic with Fang Xianling and the others managing it. Without rules, nothing could be accomplished. It was very important to have a good reason. Oh, when Fang Qingshan heard that, he thought about it and realized that he had indeed been negligent. He only thought about how to strengthen Soaring Sky Town and how to develop quickly, but the management was a little sloppy and not strict enough. Do you have any suggestions? Fang Qingshan immediately followed the advice and asked, "We've discussed it and drafted a general constitution. Please take a look, Mayor." As he said that, Fang Xianling took out something that looked like a memorial from his sleeve and handed it to Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan took it and looked at it. He was indeed a talent of the Prime Minister's residence, considering all aspects. However, he didn't know if it was because of his inherent thinking or because he didn't stand at high enough position, but there were still many shortcomings. Chapter 606. Elder Fang, I don't think this department is needed. This can be listed separately. After looking through it, Fang Qingshan thought about it and combined his thoughts with the Bound of Yellow City's example and directly discussed it with everyone. A military camp made of iron and a flowing army. Only by having a benign system and rules, establishing a perfect system department, and determining the final function could it truly be on a right track. Only then could it truly make the best use of everything and make the best use of people. Under the discussion of Fang Qingshan, Fang Xianling, and the rest, a rough plan was formed after a long time. Although it was still very rough and imperfect, the general framework had already taken shape, and it only needed to be continuously improved in the future. Governing a country was like cooking a small dish. To govern a country well, one must first govern the management, which was the people. The people in the management were generally divided into civil and military officials. Just as Yufei said, civil officials did not love money and military officials did not care about death. The world would be at peace. Although it might not be absolutely correct, it also reflected a problem in one aspect. The conflict between civil and military officials had been a big problem in China's previous dynasties. If civil officials overpowered military officials, it would easily lead to a situation like the Song dynasty. If military officials overpowered civil officials, it would also be a problem. Therefore, Fang Qingshan and Yi Tianxing first divided the civil and military officials. Civil officials do not command troops, and military officials do not interfere in politics. I plan to set up a military council pavilion, which will be in charge of all military affairs in Soaring Sky Town. Whether it's external warfare, internal defense, or anything related to the army, apart from me, no one is allowed to interfere in internal affairs. Hearing this, be it civil officials or military officials, they could not help but tremble. This was a situation that had never happened before. The army was independent of internal affairs. However, everyone present was a great talent and naturally knew that if the situation really happened, then not only would Fang Qingshan's control over Soaring Sky Town reach the peak. After all, political power came from the barrel of a gun. Even if he didn't do this, basically no one could shake his position. On the other hand, there would be no need to find excuses like generals not obeying the emperor's orders. The generals in the army would be able to fight more at ease without worrying about being interfered with by others. While fighting, there would be no need to worry about arrows shooting from the back. Thank you, my lord. At this moment, Zhang Run, Wang Wu, and the others couldn't help but step forward and kowtow to Fang Qingshan. All right, get up. Looking at the excited generals, Fang Qingshan smiled faintly, waved his hand, and helped them up. General Zhang Run, you can bring them into the Military Council Pavilion in the future. You'll be the temporary manager of the Military Council Pavilion and take charge of it. Thank you, my lord. Zhang Ren replied in a forceful and excited manner. A soldier would die for his bosom friend. Although it was only temporary, this was the Military Council Pavilion. In addition, Fang Qingshan also put Zheng He in and asked him to help build navy. In addition, I plan to build the Hall of Spiritual Crafts, the Hall of Immortals, the Six Doors, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, the Hall of Beneficence, the Cabinet, the Recruitment Hall, and the Bounty Hall. Then, Fang Qingshan listed out all the departments that he wanted to establish in one breath. Science and technology were the primary productive forces. Although China didn't pay much attention to technology in ancient times, and scholars, agriculture, industry, and commerce were only ranked before commerce. The role of industry in promoting social development couldn't be ignored. Whether it was military technology or improving the standard of living, things on the technical level were crucial. The Hall of Spiritual Crafts, the work of the gods, could also be understood as the Ministry of Works. Fang Qingshan appointed Huang Daopo as the temporary manager of the Hall of Spiritual Crafts, the Hall of Immortals. With the integration of worlds and the cultivation of every citizen, Lingxiao Town wasn't an ordinary dynasty, but a dynasty of fortune, the heavenly court. As such, it naturally couldn't be treated lightly. The Hall of Immortals was actually similar to the Ministry of Revenue in the mortal world. Ling Hufeng was the temporary manager of the Hall of Immortals. However, because of the separation of military and government, a copy of the military's household register had to be sent to the Military Council Pavilion. The Six Doors was the Ministry of Public Security in modern society. Although the people of Lingxiao Town seemed to have entered a great harmony society, where people didn't pick up lost things on the road and people didn't close their doors at night, this was only temporary. People who didn't think far ahead would have immediate worries. As Ling Xiao Town developed, more and more people, and even foreign races, were integrated into the town. Public security was the first to be affected. Therefore, Fang Qingshan decided to establish the 6 doors to handle internal inspections, arresting important criminals, and so on. The manager of the 6 doors was Wang Wu. The Celestial Treasure Pavilion's main function was to manage resources, money, taxes, and so on. It was also part of the original Ministry of Revenue. It was also part of the Ministry of Commerce. This department naturally belonged to Wan Sanqian. All the rare treasures and resources that Fang Qingshan had used to develop Ling Xiao Town were all handed over to him. With Wan Sanqian's means, he could start from scratch and become rich enough to rival a country. Now that he had Fang Qingshan's support, he didn't have to worry about Shan Wansan ending up like him. He had to go all out. The Jishir Hall, as the saying went, practicing medicine to help the people. Although everyone cultivated, and although there was the Medicine King's well, it didn't mean that doctors were useless. They could exchange medical skills, alchemy, healing, cultivation, and even offensive and defensive elixirs. However, this department didn't have any professional experts, so they could only select some Chinese medicine practitioners, Dr. Zhao, Dr. Qian, and Dr. Sun, to jointly manage them. The Merit Tower was even simpler. It was a place to calculate and record merits and contributions. In the future, if they wanted to exchange for treasures, cultivation techniques, elixirs, and so on in places like the Celestial Treasure Pavilion, the Sutra Depository, and Jishir Hall, they would first have to have merit and contribution points. Fang Qingshan planned to let Skynet manage this place in the future. As for the cabinet, it was even easier. It was where the people's livelihood and politics were in charge of the entire Ling Xiao town, with Fang Xianling as the head and Lin Rohai as the assistant. The purpose of the recruitment hall was to find hidden talents. Although it wasn't absolute, it wasn't false either. Many people liked to hide in the city and play the game. This recruitment hall mainly reflected Ling Xiao Town's eagerness to find talents. The Bounty Hall was actually a department that overlapped with the 6 doors. However, the 6 doors was run by the government, while the Bounty Hall was more like a semi-official department. The so-called Bounty Hall was a place where people could obtain rewards for completing missions. Not only could they get ethereal coins, but they could also get contribution points. Moreover, the Bounty Hall didn't have a gate. As long as the mission was completed, there would be rewards. This way, not only could it relieve the pressure on the 6 doors, but it could also eliminate some unstable factors and speed up the development of Ling Xiao Town. For example, they could issue missions and reward the number of civilians they brought back, or they could get news of a large number of civilians, and so on. This was not only more efficient, but it could also reduce the pressure on the army. Chapter 607. The various departments were established, and their functions were clearly divided. The entire High Sky Town seemed to have opened up its 8 extraordinary meridians, and it operated more smoothly. Even the speed of development seemed to have increased, but it was not without problems. Like at the beginning, there were still fewer people. The growth of the population of High Sky Town was far slower than the speed of development, which also slowed down the process. Although Fang Qingshan and the others had tried their best, they could not make bricks without straw. In this regard, Fang Qingshan had thought more than once that if he went to the journey to the west, he must go to the country of women, intercept a section of the river there, and throw it in a High Sky Town. That way, as long as they drank a mouthful of water, they could reproduce, and population growth would not be a problem. Although it would take time for these children to really grow up. Another problem was that although they were people, they were not ordinary people, but talents. High Sky Town not only lacked people, but also talents. Didn't Fang Qingshan see that the Bounty Hall and the Recruitment Hall had not arranged for suitable people? In this regard, Fang Qingshan was also very helpless. Talents and people were very different. People could be robbed, but there might not be 1 in 1,000 people with talents. Therefore, he set up the recruitment hall, hoping to get some unexpected surprises. In addition, apart from relying on luck, he could only cultivate them himself. It took 10 years to grow trees and 100 years to cultivate people. Fang Qingshan paid particular attention to this point. Therefore, when High Sky Town was still High Sky Village, he set up an academy and drove all the children of the right age to enter. But this was also uncontrollable. Whether they could become talents, how many of them could become talents, and when they could become talents, were all problems. Fortunately, although High Sky Town was developing rapidly and there were many things waiting to be done, Fang Xianling and the others were able to do more work. Although it was a little hard, it was generally not a problem. High Sky Town could come to an end. With various departments, functions, and Fang Xianling and the others, Fang Qingshan believed that there would not be any problems in general. Next, he should consider the opening of a market. High Sky Town's development was increasingly limited. The most important thing was people, talents, and also resources. Although Fang Qingshan had looted the 2 non-human clans and exchanged some of the treasures from Fatty Tom, he didn't know how to deal with them. However, compared to a force, the construction of a country was really like the price of fuel and rice if one did not manage it. The resources flowed out like flowing water every day. Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin felt their blood ache. In the end, Mosquito Dowrin directly left Soaring Sky Town. On one hand, he wanted to make a living on his own and gather resources. On the other hand, he did not want to suffer this kind of torture. Seeing the huge amount of resources flowing before his eyes was like cutting off Mosquito Dowrin's flesh. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had already dealt with the problem of the market, and it could be opened at any time. Thunder Emperor opened the 5 Elements Ruins Market immediately. Send a notice to the various coordinates on Eternal World on the Zhodian star map. Our 5 Elements Ruins Market is officially open for business. Fang Qingshan took a deep breath and communicated with the timeless arc in the Universal Chessboard's Void Tunnel. Okay. Hearing this, the Thunder Emperor immediately responded. Although his voice still seemed to be emotionless, Fang Qingshan could also feel his excitement. As the core spirit of the Timeless Arc, the Thunder Emperor would naturally benefit more from the Timeless Arc's development. It was no wonder that the usually aloof Thunder Emperor could not help but be excited. Then, in the void, a timeless arc emitting eternal light materialized. Of course, in order not to irritate Hongjun Tiandao, this timeless arc was just a projection. However, there was no problem with all its functions, and it was no different from operating on a main body. Tell the Eternal Continent that from today on, the 5 Elements Ruins Market will officially open near Lingxiao Town. For the first time, the gate of the Ruins Market will be open for free, and all the cultivators of the Eternal Continent will be welcome to enter the Ruins Market. In the 5 Elements Ruins Market, there are countless rare immortal treasures, many unique treasures, delicious and unique spirit wine, and rare spiritual medicine. There are also fortuitous encounters that all living beings can only dream of. The Thunder Emperor said directly, and his voice quickly spread to the entire Eternal Continent through the Zhodian star map. The Ruins Market opened for the first time, and it could borrow the power of the Eternal Spirit, the Timeless Arc, and so on to spread its voice to the infinite worlds. Because it was a pilot in the Eternal Continent, it was not announced to the infinite worlds. These landmarks on the Eternal Continent were naturally obtained by Fang Qingshan from Fatty Tong. They were traveling merchants who traveled all over the world and had been to countless places. Moreover, they were basically the forces of the human clan, as well as forces inclined to the human clan. As for the alien races that hated and even saw the human clan as food, Fang Qingshan would definitely not open the gate of the Ruins Market to them. Although he wanted to obtain resources, he did not want to strengthen the strength of the alien races even more. Of course, if there were fish that slipped through the net, then there was nothing that could be done. However, a small number of alien races could not affect the overall situation. However, Fang Qingshan also smuggled in some private work and made the name of Lingxiao Town known. For a time, the voice of the Thunder Emperor sounded throughout the Eternal Continent, in all the human forces, and so on. The eternal continent was unknown how far away it was. In a mountain range, there was a waterfall that flowed straight down, and a city stood not far from the waterfall. Above the city gate were the words Luoyang. This was the great Han dynasty that Liu Bang, the ancestor of the Han dynasty, had rebuilt. In the city lord's mansion, there was a tall man dressed in a long gray robe, with a handsome face, a beautiful beard, and 72 black spots on his left thigh. He looked dignified, about 25 or 26 years old, and had a ruffian air about him, but he had the appearance of an emperor. When he heard this, he could not help but frown. Lingxiao Town, 5 Elements Ruins Market. What kind of place is this? It's just a town, and I've never heard of High Firmament Town before. However, its name can be heard throughout the eternal continent, and the heavenly Tao has given its name to it. Clearly, this 5 Elements Ruins Market isn't as simple as it looks. But if that's the case, why did it open near High Firmament Town? For a time, Liu Bang could not help but be puzzled. He was not the only one who was confused. Many people were confused as well. Zhao Kuangyin of Kaifeng City, Zhang Jiao of Peaceful City, Xiongba of Mighty Tyrant City, Zhao Kuangyi of Jinling Village, and so on. All the forces were a little puzzled by the sudden appearance of Lingxiao Town and the 5 Elements Ruins Market. Although they felt that there was something wrong with Lingxiao Town, no one looked down on it. Everyone thought that they must go and take a look later. However, 1.5 of them had a clear understanding of this. The one who had a clear understanding was naturally Fatty Tong. He had obtained Fang Qingshan's 5 Elements Ruins Market's welcoming token, so he was naturally aware of this. And the half of them was naturally Yi Tianqing. From now on, he was only a town, but his name would spread throughout the heavens. Yi Tianqing immediately thought of Fang Qingshan. It had to be said that the protagonist's intuition was very sharp. Chapter 608. Whoosh! In the void, rays of golden light flashed and naturally formed a golden ancient gate. Like a meteor shower, it fell toward the various coordinates. These gates were simple, mysterious, and magnificent. They were engraved with the Zodion star and golden lotuses. These gates were condensed by the Thunder Emperor with the power of the timeless arc and the eternal unit Zodion star. They were equivalent to portals and space portals. Compared with the marketplace, which could only be used as a spiritual projection, the gates of the ruins could be entered in person. However, the gates of the ruins were not so easy to open. It was the first time the 5 Elements ruins had opened, and many people in the Eternal Continent did not know much about the ruins. In order to get off to a good start, the Thunder Emperor was not willing to open the gates of the ruins at all. After all, the consumption was too great. The gates of the ruins of the Eternal Continent had hundreds and thousands of them. Most of them were ultra-long distance teleportation. Even if the Heaven Vessel had the Thunder Pool, Thunder Gathering Pagoda, and Eternal God Furnace, it wouldn't be able to withstand the torment. Therefore, the gates of the ruins could only last for 3 days at most. Once the time was up, they would disappear immediately. In the future, if one wanted to enter the ruins, apart from the special invitation of the ruins, the projection of any door, or the receiving token like Fatty Tong, there was only one way, and that was to find the Star Stone. The so-called Star Stone was actually a treasure bred by the heart of the world. It contained a trace of the world's aura and represented a certain amount of luck. It could be said to be precious, but it could also be said to be useless. After all, it was a treasure that had been tempered by the world's source energy. Obtaining a starstone would allow one to obtain great benefits in their own world. In addition, the most important thing was that the starstone was an irreplaceable material for the construction of the star altar. The heavenly star altar was the only way to connect to the ruined city. Apart from the invitation of the timeless ark, one could only enter the ruins by relying on the star altar. Otherwise, no matter how high one's cultivation was, it was impossible to find the ruins out of thin air. Even the great emperor could not do it. It was useless because, apart from the above functions, the star stone would not have any other effects. It was no different from ordinary stones. People who did not understand would ignore it even if they saw it. Of course, this was also a barrier. After all, the market was a high-end trading place and the birthplace of fortuitous opportunities. The real golden treasure land was not dangerous. As long as one was lucky enough and had good eyesight, one could change his luck and ascend to heaven after coming to the ruins market once. Once it became famous, the number of people who wanted to enter, it was like a school of carps crossing the river. There was no need to worry about customers. Therefore, the next time the market opened, he would need the star stones to refine the altar. However, there were a lot of star stones, but it was very difficult to find them. After all, they looked no different from ordinary stones. Who knew when they would come across one? Moreover, without special means, even if they came across one, it was very likely that they would miss it. Almost no one in the Eternal Continent knew the answer to these questions. Once they truly experienced the wonders of the ruined city, they would begin to panic. As more and more of the market's doors opened, although many people felt that there might be some sort of danger or conspiracy, they knew that no one would be foolish enough to make an enemy out of the entire Eternal Continent. Therefore, they gritted their teeth and entered. As soon as they entered the Five Elements ruined city, these people were shrouded in a thin layer of fog. No one could see through their true faces. This ensured the privacy and safety of the guests who came to the ruined city to the greatest extent. With the arrival of people from all over the Eternal Continent, the ruined city was perfectly presented in front of everyone. The ground was paved with white jade, and the whole ruined city was filled with a refreshing fragrance, which made people unconsciously intoxicated. On the streets of the market, there were many warriors in beast robes, whose eyes were as wide as copper bells, standing guard. Each of them exuded an unapproachable aura, giving people a natural sense of oppression. No one dared to act rashly. These were naturally the Wu people's warriors bred in Zhu Wu's mirror ship and sail unit. Their purpose was naturally to maintain the order of the ruined city. Of course, the most attractive thing was naturally the landmark buildings standing in the central square. The gambling house, the stone square, the Colosseum, the Daoxiang village, the herb garden, the observatory, the lantern tree, the restriction treasure mountain, and so on. Of course, the stalls on the street were also very good places for ordinary rogue cultivators and loners. Everyone who came to the Five Elements ruined city listened to the basic introduction of the ruined city and walked around it a few times. In an instant, they felt like they could see the peak and forget about the outside world. On the Qinhuai River, there were feasting, singing, and dancing. There were good wine, beautiful women, and beautiful scenery. The singing and dancing of orioles complemented each other. Not only were they pleasing to the eye, but more importantly, they could also cleanse people's bodies and minds and improve the origin of the soul. Of course, the fee was not cheap, but it was worth it. Not only the Qinhuai River, but many places were crazily trying and buying. Places such as the Thousand Years Tower, the Restriction Treasure Mountain, and so on, came in batches. Places such as alchemy, artifact refining, the Daoxiang village, and the herb garden were crazily sweeping up goods and chopping hands. Of course, the main customers here were the masters of those forces. In addition, the craziest places were the lantern tree and the life lighthouse. After all, once a life lamp was lit here, it was equivalent to having an extra life, especially in a place like the Eternal Continent. Safety was a big problem. However, there were still a few people who could light up a life lamp. After all, the fee here was not cheap, and there was a time limit. After the time limit, they had to renew the fee, and if they did not renew, the lamp would be extinguished. Another group of people, who were very confident in their strength or suspicious, did not light up a life lamp. They still maintained an instinctive vigilance against the Five Elements ruined city. But even then, they still felt a wave of excitement and envy towards the various fortuitous encounters in the Five Element ruined city. With the opening of the ruined city, more and more people realized the wonders of the ruined city. The reputation of the ruined city was completely established. At the same time, the ethereal money and soaring sky town became famous. The ethereal money was not weaker than other eternal coins, so it was naturally sought after by many forces, especially those forces that did not have a unified currency. Even Tianqing had exchanged a lot of it. Money could move the gods, and the ethereal money was not a joke. As for Soaring Sky Town, in addition to the Eternal Continent, where Fang Qingshan mixed in some private goods, it was mentioned everywhere in the entire ruined city. Not only were notices posted, but the basic situation of Soaring Sky Town was also announced. At the same time, the spirits of various building units would also recommend Soaring Sky Town to others at appropriate times. It was really all-pervasive and unscrupulous. Of course, Fang Qingshan's harvest was not only these. Chapter 609. Because ethereal coins were the only universal currency, and many high-end items needed to be bartered, Fang Qingshan had obtained a large number of rare treasures, which were no less than what he had obtained from the mutated tribe in Fatty Tong. These were precious things, and the ordinary taxes were even more. Just this opening alone, excluding the consumption, the profit was no less than what Fang Qingshan had obtained from a treasure trove. Sure enough, being a landlord is a guaranteed profit. In terms of stability and security, there were also many ways to make money. Compared to exploration, treasure hunting, robbery, theft, and so on, the landlord collecting rent was undoubtedly one of the most appropriate ways. Seeing that his assets were increasing every moment, Fang Qingshan finally experienced the feeling of counting money until his hands cramped up. With the Timeless Ark and a ruined city, the owner of the Timeless Ark basically did not have to worry about the problem of resources. Just the rent collected each time was no less than that of an ordinary treasure trove, not to mention the other precious treasures obtained. Of course, this was also for the average person, but for Fang Qingshan, it was not very realistic. This was because the advancement of the Timeless Ark was also a big eater, and each advancement consumed a huge amount of resources. For the average person, supplying one Timeless Ark was already a bit overwhelming. However, Fang Qingshan had two digestive systems that were not weaker than the Timeless Ark, Mosquito Dowren and Soaring Sky Town. Mosquito Dowren was a little better, as long as there were resources. It was similar to the Timeless Arkansas. However, the advancement of Soaring Sky Town not only required resources, but also depended on luck, popular sentiment, and so on. It was very troublesome. However, the former two attributed great power to themselves, while Soaring Sky Town built a force. Compared to gathering luck, the latter was undoubtedly more beneficial. The importance of luck was even more obvious to Fang Qingshan after he cultivated to a certain level. Putting that aside for now, Fang Qingshan watched as the Five Elements Ruins Market became livelier and livelier, as well as the bustling scene of trading, buying, and sweeping up goods. Even Fang Xianling, Lin Rahai, and the others had joined in. Fang Qingshan couldn't help but want to enter the market to have a good look. Of course, the places that Fang Qingshan wanted to visit were naturally not the buildings unique to the ruins, such as the Qinhuai River, the observatory, or Daoxiang Village. That was because he had personally experienced those places after merging with the rare treasure buildings. However, the street stalls on both sides of the street were more attractive to him. Here, not only could one experience the joy of shopping, but there was also no lack of treasures. More importantly, one could find treasures and pick up leftovers. This kind of fun was not inferior to the stone workshop. Moreover, the stone workshop was more of a test of luck. Here, in addition to luck, one also needed eyesight and the ability to perform. After entering the ruins market, Fang Qingshan, like everyone else, was directly shrouded in the fog of the ruins market, making it impossible to see him clearly. Now, even if he met Fang Xianling and the others, they would not recognize him. After entering the ruins market, Fang Qingshan went straight to the streets and alleys full of stalls. Although it was not as orderly and dazzling as the shops, it was still very lively. However, he saw that there were places with 10,000-year ice essence, 7-star flying stone, heart of lava, sea heart flame, stone fire, wood fire, and other heavenly and earthly treasures. In some places, there were bottles of medicinal pills, healing, cultivation, low-level and high-level. Although they could not compare to the Alchemy Pavilion, and the quality was also a little worse, the price was cheaper, and the business was very good. There were also places with all kinds of weapons and magic treasures: sabers, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, tridents, mirrors, bottles, rulers, flags, and so on. Although many of them were damaged, the stalls were also surrounded by people. Fang Qingshan looked at the stalls one by one. From time to time, he would bend down and take a closer look. Although he did not see many things that tempted him, he basically did not make any moves. After all, ordinary treasures would not be able to catch Fang Qingshan's eye at all. Over at the exchange pavilion alone, all kinds of ordinary treasures had already piled up into a treasure mountain. This was because the 5 elements ruins market's currency was God's way money. If one wanted to trade, buy, or enjoy, they had to first exchange for God's way money. However, its nature was not reduced at all. After a few rounds, Fang Qingshan managed to get his hands on some good treasures. For example, the triple brilliance holy water. Of course, it was not like the drop of real triple brilliance holy water that he obtained at the All Creation Pagoda. The triple brilliance holy water was the sun, moon, and stars. Fang Qingshan obtained the sunlight holy water, moonlight holy water, and starlight holy water respectively. Of course, it would take some effort to fuse them into the triple brilliance holy water. Apart from that, Fang Qingshan also obtained a withered gourd vine. However, Fang Qingshan could still sense a faint vitality within it. Moreover, this gourd vine was innate. Fang Qingshan wanted to plant it next to the world tree to see if it could survive. If it could, it would probably become another top-grade spirit root. Even if it could not compare to the legendary gourd vine of the Desolation, it would not be inferior to ordinary superior-grade spirit roots. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan had obtained the triple brilliance holy water, the world tree, and the 9 heavens living soil. Otherwise, he would really be helpless. Apart from the triple brilliance holy water and the gourd vine, Fang Qingshan also found items suitable for fusing the soaring heaven-suppressing eye. A crystal skull and a biochip. If they were fused with Skynet, it would be no different from Tianqing's Star Web and Star Sea. There was also a rare treasure building, which was the auction house. Fang Qingshan planned to fuse it into the timeless Ark ruins. In fact, compared to brothels and gambling dens, the auction house was not inferior at all. Moreover, if he could continuously take out some top-grade treasures, it would be very useful in attracting customers. He would stop and look at the items he was interested in, ask for the price, and buy the suitable ones. If it was not suitable, he would skip it, unless it was a treasure that he absolutely had to obtain. However, he had not found such a thing after walking around. Rumble. Just as the ruins was about to end, the entire eternal continent let out a loud roar. It was as if the heavenly generals were beating drums and the divine generals were ringing bells. Even the people in the ruined city could feel it. The sound of thunder contains the will of heaven and earth. Is something big going to happen? Fang Qingshan's expression froze. In an instant, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind. He secretly speculated. However, in the next moment, Fang Qingshan understood. After the sound of thunder, just like when the village creation order had been upgraded, Hongjun Tiandao had revealed an invisible force that swept in all directions. In the 5th year of the eternal calendar, the first god and demon battlefield will begin. The 10,000 races will fight for hegemony, and the winner will be the king. A cold Hongjun Tiandao, I appeared in the void. The top 10 of the 10,000 races will be rewarded by heaven and earth with boundless opportunities. I see. Hearing Hongjun Tiandao's voice, Fang Qingshan could not help but have a sudden realization. It turned out that the 10,000 races were fighting for hegemony, and the god and demon battlefield had begun. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.